He looked at the notice he was holding. My heart almost jumped out of my chest when I saw your name on this paper. Then he turned to look at Bota, his expression as cunning as a fox, the eldest son of Tianma. Bota Ma, I'll never forget that name. Suddenly, he delivered a swift kick to the boy's stomach, causing Bota to cry out in pain. Then he grabbed his hair, forcing him to look up at him. Your father died fighting a monster, didn't he? He pulled harder. Too bad for you. I was planning on sending him off myself. As he spoke, a savage, brutal look appeared in his eyes. Bota trembled like a leaf. Then, Dohu continued, your father betrayed the Busan Federation. This statement shocked Bota to the core. His mind was in turmoil. My father, what? At that moment, Lita rushed over and hugged him. Bota, and Dohu uttered a sentence that sent a chill down his spine. Welcome back. You're the son of a traitor, kid. Dohu kicked him straight in the face, causing Bota's head to hit the wall. He even deliberately ground his foot, pressing harder. He grabbed his leg, strongly refuting, my father is not that kind of person. My father is a true harpooner, someone who protects everyone. Dohu heard this and smirked. Protects everyone, huh? Then, he went on a long tirade. The Leviathan Purger, the legendary 6-star harpooner. He must have been playing the hero out there when he was at sea with you too. Dohu glared. Listen carefully. There's a truth your father never wanted to talk about. Then he asked again, you said you haven't seen him for 10 years, right? You must have been at sea all that time, huh? This question reminded him of the time he had asked the same thing. Dad, are you sure there's anyone else alive out here besides us? At that time, Tian had answered, I'm sure, son. They're just out there somewhere, but the ocean that separates us is too vast. Remembering his father's gentle smile, Bota replied, tremblingly, no way. Dohu saw this and laughed gleefully, then affirmed, he's been hiding from us. The boy's eyes widened in disbelief. Impossible. Suddenly, he took off his glove and said, did he think we would forget about it after 10 years? As he took it off, his hand was not normal flesh and blood, but mechanical components. Dohu held it up for the boy to see. Take a good look at what your father did to his comrade. Tianma, the murderer who killed countless harpooners in the Busan Federation. He even incited a riot. The words hit Bota like a thunderbolt. He was stunned. Father, a murderer? At this moment, another man held him tightly by the neck, while Dohu asked, someone has to pay the price for that crime, right? For your father. As he spoke, his mechanical hand moved closer to the boy. It gripped Bota's entire face, the sharp nails digging into his skin. Lita saw her brother being treated like this and couldn't help but scream, stop. Suddenly, there was a strange noise from outside. Dohu immediately ordered, all units, take positions. At this moment, the loudspeaker also announced, emergency situation. Emergency situation. All hands to battle stations. People started to panic. Sea monsters. We're under attack. Hearing this, everyone scattered in terror. The subordinate also said in surprise, sea monsters? Dohu glared at him. At this moment, the small boats were moving. Ahead were dozens of terrifying sea monsters. Suddenly, a command was given. They're about to breach the Busan Federation. Speed up. A terrified person screamed. They're here. The boats were getting closer and closer to the monsters, and they were slowly emerging from the water. The soldiers tried to fire at them. However, the sea monster was not only unharmed, but also turned to attack them. It lunged forward, devouring one person, then continued to tear apart other unfortunate victims. The crowd continued to surround and fire. One person shouted, die. Just then, the sea monster opened its mouth and lunged at him. Then it pierced their ship and made its way into the cockpit, causing everyone to panic run. However, someone couldn't run in time and was swallowed by the sea monster. Inside the ship, earth-shattering sounds began to echo, stunning everyone. The people trembled in fear, not knowing what their fate would be. Suddenly, a large hole was torn in the ceiling, revealing an empty space, making everyone even more afraid. Inside that hole was an eye as big as a car tire, staring at them. Then a series of sea monsters crawled in, roaring loudly. Outside, dozens of others also rushed in, frantically tearing at the ship. The others who saw this scene were terrified. The ship is slowly sinking. It's over. We're really done for this time. Run faster. If you get left behind, it's game over. The sea monsters started to chase them. The loudspeaker announced, all hands ready. All hands ready. The subordinate urged, Captain Dohu, we have to go now. He clicked his tongue in annoyance. Why at a time like this? Then he threatened, I'll see you again soon, kid. I'll make your life a living hell right here. As he spoke, he slowly closed the door. Bota held his sister tightly. Outside, the door was also locked by them. Lita hugged her brother, sobbing, I'm so scared, Bota. He was tense. That bastard is really dangerous. We have to get out of here. At this moment, Kana announced, the scout unit is being attacked by sea eel monsters. Move faster, faster. They gathered together, waiting for the countdown. 3, 2, 1. then charged forward in unison. With their advanced support machines, Kana's team stood shoulder to shoulder. They used surfboards to rush out to sea. At this moment, she assigned tasks. Run, you provide cover on the deck. The rest of you, flank with me. Everyone replied in unison, Roger that. Let's go. Then they charged straight towards the monsters. The others were still trying to resist. They're about to catch up. Try to hold on a little longer. The harpooners are coming. Run spread his arms, and his weapon immediately appeared. He drove the speedboat at full speed, approaching the back of the ship, then suddenly leaped high into the air, preparing to deliver a punch to the monster. He punched it right between the eyes. The sea monster's two eyes bulged out. Then it was pierced through, its entire body exploding into pieces, leaving only fragments. Run finished the job and landed lightly on the ground. He smiled smugly. First blood, then he targeted other objectives. His mechanical arm fanned out countless sharp spikes. He stared at the monster. With just one punch, he sent a whole bunch of monsters to their doom at the same time. After finishing, he didn't forget to count the number. Suddenly, someone shouted, "It's Run. Kana's team is here." Everyone was overjoyed. "Save us, Run." Run quickly shouted, "It's not safe yet, fall back." Suddenly, he noticed a strange green liquid on his arm. There was a pile of it on the floor too. Everyone was confused. What the hell is that? Run guessed slime. At this moment, Kana's team was continuously firing. Sharp harpoons flew, piercing the monsters, but it seemed they were blocked by a strange layer of slime. They immediately realized the harpoons are useless. The monsters are secreting some kind of weird slime. They're trying to capsize the boat. Run shouted, "Everyone run. It's not safe to stay here." Suddenly, the slime stuck to a person, and he screamed in terror. Just then, a monster suddenly lunged forward. He thought he was done for, but luckily, Kana appeared in time. She did a flip in the air and used her blades to slash the monsters to pieces. Kana made short work of them, then quickly sped away. The man from before breathed a sigh of relief. That was close. I'm safe. Suddenly, Run called, "Kana." She only had time to give a few instructions. Lure the sea monsters somewhere else. You have to ensure everyone's safety, Run. Then she took a glass tube from her pocket. "Dr. Foy's serum for me." She hesitated for a moment. "Will this be okay?" Then she crushed the glass tube in her hand. The monsters seemed to smell the blood. They immediately turned their heads in that direction and frantically chased after Kana. Seeing this, she felt a little relieved. Good, they're reacting to it. The monsters followed relentlessly. Meanwhile, a sewer pipe on the ship was clanging. Then the cap popped off, and Bota and Lita crawled out of the sewer pipe. The little girl was scared. "I'm afraid of heights." He said, "Don't look down, Lita." After that, the two siblings clung to the wall, slowly crawling along the pipe. At the railing, Bota jumped down first and held out his hand. "Just a little more. Give me your hand." Lita jumped into his arms. The little girl sighed in relief. "We did it." He felt a little tired and said, "Lita, can you get down?" At this moment, the crowd was enthusiastically cheering. "Kana? Kana." The little girl wondered, "Kana, is that the person who saved us that time?" The two of them moved closer to see. They saw her being chased by the monsters, surrounded by deafening cheers. "Go, Kana! Kana!" Bota's jaw dropped in amazement. She's being chased by the sea monsters, and she was concentrating intensely. Not yet. Just a little more. A monster suddenly surged forward, getting close. Kana nimbly jumped up, dodging its snap. She gritted her teeth, then suddenly raised her two blades. "Now, do it." Immediately after, a machine was activated. Then it spewed fire in all directions. The large fire quickly engulfed the monsters, incinerating all of them. The sea monsters struggled to escape, screaming desperately. Then they were burned and sank to the bottom. Everyone's jaw dropped at the sight. Bota too. He stared without blinking. 3-star harpooner, Kana. Run smiled in praise. What a badass warrior. Everyone shouted in unison, "Thank you, Kana. You saved us." Then came resounding cheers. She raised a blade, responding to the crowd's cheers. The warriors who fight sea monsters to protect their territory. She is one of those harpooner warriors. Suddenly, Bota remembered Dohu's words. "Listen carefully. There's a truth your father never wanted to hear again. He is a murderer who killed countless other harpooners from the Busan Federation." He was confused. A murderer. A warrior. So what kind of person was his father? What should he do now? Night gradually fell. In Bota's room, Dohu and his cronies discovered that the two siblings had escaped. He gritted his teeth. Little rats. They escaped through the water pipes. Then he picked up a shoe, cursing foully, then ordered, "Find them for me. Even if you have to take them out at all costs, bring them back here." Meanwhile, Bota and his sister were in hiding. He was confused, but where do we go now? Then he took Lita's hand and ran. Suddenly, he heard people shouting, "Get out of the way! Get out of the way!" People were confused. What's going on? Someone said, "I think the harpooners are looking for someone." Bota heard this, and his heart pounded. His legs trembled. Are they talking about me? Thinking this, he immediately pulled his sister and fled. He ran as fast as he could, with only one thought in his mind: I have to hide. I can't let them find me. Lita cried out, Bota, my hand hurts. But he was too preoccupied to notice, running and worrying. Where do we go now? The Federation is so big, but there's no place for the two of us on this giant ship. When they reached a place, he suddenly saw that group of people already standing there searching. They scanned their eyes, observing everywhere. The two siblings froze, terrified. After that, they had to try to walk normally. However, suddenly someone said, there she is, which made the two of them jump. Next, he said, come here, follow us quietly. The old woman trembled and said, take her away, she's very tired. Bota squeezed through the crowd to look, and suddenly realized it was the old woman he had given some money to before. At that time, he had said, this is all I have. The old woman thanked him and gave him some seeds, then smiled kindly. Consider this a gift of gratitude. These seeds represent hope. I think this should belong to a child like you rather than an old woman like me. Now, she was sobbing. Bota wondered, is that the old woman who gave me the seeds? Why are they dragging her away? The people around them were sympathetic. I heard she owes 3 months of taxes. Poor woman. Are they going to kick her out? He asked the woman, kick her out, but where to? She replied, they'll put her on a raft and push her away. It's almost like they're going to kill her. Most of the people who have been treated like this become food for sea monsters. As they were about to take the old woman away, someone stopped them. He offered, let me pay this month's taxes for her. The rules are important, but we can't just abandon her. Let her go just this once. The others agreed. That's right, let her go. How can she survive out there for even a day? The group of men were pressured, gritting their teeth, not knowing what to do. At this moment, Dohu appeared. He asked, what's all the noise about? Seeing this, Bota immediately pulled his sister to hide behind a man. And this guy crossed his arms, his tone indifferent. You'll pay for her? The kind man replied, yes. He growled, are you trying to defy the laws of the Busan Federation? All right, we'll let it slide this time. But who will pay for her next month? And the month after that, and the month after that, and then what? Dohu pointed at the man, continuously pressing him. Will you continue to pay for her? He stammered, not knowing how to answer. Dohu gritted his teeth. Do you think the Busan Federation can survive if it's full of citizens who can't pay their taxes? Answer me. Who will fulfill this old woman's duty? Everyone panicked, bowing their heads. At this moment, Bota remembered his father's words. There were hunters where my father used to live. And he also remembered when he faced Dohu. Father, you were wrong. The hunters fight sea monsters to protect their territory. They don't protect people without money. I am one of them. He began to feel confused. What? So what kind of hunter was my father? The father he knew was a good person. Suddenly, a voice shouted, get up. The old woman pleaded in fear. Please don't do this. Just give her some time. He shouted, never break the Federation's law. We are safe from storms and sea monsters, thanks to the existence of the Busan Federation. Everyone panicked, bowing their heads. At this moment, Bota remembered his father's words. There were hunters where my father used to live. And he also remembered when he faced Dohu. Father, you were wrong. The hunters fight sea monsters to protect their territory. They don't protect people without money. I am one of them. He began to feel confused. What? So what kind of hunter was my father? The father he knew was a good person. Suddenly, a voice shouted, get up. The old woman pleaded in fear. Please don't do this. Just give her some time. He shouted, never break the Federation's law. We are safe from storms and sea monsters, thanks to the existence of the Busan Federation. Bota was angry, no. They continued to preach, the existence of laws is to protect this place. We hunters are here for that. Then, he ordered, take the old woman away. Bota bravely spoke up, let her go. He saw the boy and was overjoyed. It's Bota. The old woman turned her head, whispering for him to run. Bota said firmly, my father told me that hunters are ocean warriors who protect people. Dohu was angry. What's your opinion? He continued to speak the truth. You people torture others and then take them away. Who throws an old woman into the water and calls themselves a hunter? He angrily slapped the boy hard across the face. Learn to live with your beliefs. You dare challenge me? Dohu grimaced, gritting his teeth, saying he is a hunter who has dedicated his life and loyalty to the Federation. Then he asked if the boy wanted to try him. With that, he kicked Bota hard in the stomach. Everyone on the ship was terrified. As for the boy, though injured, he bravely retorted, a hunter isn't necessarily the one who keeps this ship afloat. I've seen that clearly. The reason this ship still exists is thanks to the dedication of everyone. Bota shouted, stop taking credit, you delusional hunters. I've seen it all. It's not the Federation protecting the people, but the people carrying this Federation. Hearing this, everyone looked at each other in confusion. Bota continued to speak. Protectors of the ship, huh? Hiding behind others and waiting for them to carry you is quite impressive. Dohu was furious by now. He stomped the boy's head to the ground. Then he cursed, like father, like son. In the future you'll follow in your father's footsteps and become a traitor too. Bota struggled to sit up, saying that his father could never be a traitor. He rushed forward, grabbed Bota by the collar. and shouted, "Who here doesn't know your father was a traitorous murderer?" People whispered, "Tianma, is that Tianma's son?" At that moment, Lita rushed up to pull his hand, but was thrown to the ground by Dohu. Seeing this, Bota angrily kicked him down. He held his face in outrage, asking if the boy dared to defy and attack a hunter. Then he pulled out his gun, pointing it straight at the two siblings. The old woman screamed, "Spare them," but he had already fired continuously. Immediately, the piercing sound of clashing metal rang out. Kana moved swiftly, blocking the incoming bullets. Her eyes were full of killing intent and vigilance. Kana stood protectively in front of the two siblings. Her appearance startled the opponent. Kana. The group next to him was just as surprised. It's Kana. Kana. Dohu frowned, his expression slightly displeased. The soldiers behind him were also surprised by her action. Kana, are you crazy? Dohu frowned, his voice thick with anger. You are obstructing a superior officer in the line of duty. Kana's eyes were resolute as she replied, "This boy did nothing wrong." Hearing this, Dohu sneered sarcastically. You always have a soft spot for refugees, don't you? Are you planning to adopt this kid now too? Kana pressed her lips together in silence, saying nothing. Seeing that stubborn expression, Dohu grew even angrier. Wait, he seemed to realize something, his eyes scrutinizing. You knew from the beginning he was Tianma's son, didn't you? This time, Kana remained silent, but her eyes were more guarded. The two looked at each other warily, the atmosphere suddenly becoming frighteningly silent. Finally, Dohu couldn't stand Kana's stubborn face and silence and attacked first. Kana quickly raised her hand to block the blow. Seeing this, Dohu became even angrier, muttering a curse. Very quickly, Kana spun around, gently counterattacking before her opponent could react. Dohu was startled, glancing at the wound on his face. When he came to his senses, he roared in anger. Damn it, you bitch. Kana ignored his reaction and continued to charge forward. Her agile and gentle attacks continuously overwhelmed the opponent. Dohu gritted his teeth, trying to block Kana's fierce attacks. After a while of struggling, Kana gathered all her strength. A finishing blow struck straight at Dohu. This blow also sent him flying back quite a distance. Dohu smiled, raising his iron arm, which was covered in slashes and smoking. So this is your true nature? The onlookers could only stare with wide eyes, utterly astonished. Dohu felt the situation was not good and signaled for everyone to charge. Kana, you are under arrest for treason. The soldiers quickly raised their weapons, surrounding Kana. She lowered her eyes slightly. It was unclear what she was planning. Dohu smiled provocatively. No matter how strong you are, you can't fight against numbers. As soon as he finished speaking, Kana raised her gun. Their faces immediately went blank with a hint of fear. Not letting them wait long, Kana fired continuously forward. Dohu's men were terrified, covering their heads and ducking, screaming nonstop. But it seemed her target wasn't them, but the electrical box in the distance. Just a moment later, the electrical box exploded. The entire cellar was plunged into darkness, the soldiers' faces blank as they hadn't adjusted. Dohu gritted his teeth in anger. Damn it, he shouted an order, block all exits. But as soon as he finished speaking, in the distant darkness, only screams and the clash of metal could be heard. Dohu turned his head, shouting with both worry and anger. Where is she? Right at the exit, a soldier was already waiting. He raised his sword, shouting a threat. Stop, surrender now. But his response was a knee from Kana as she led the group behind her. Kana didn't look back, only coldly reminded them, if you want to live, stick close to me. The boy immediately replied with excitement. Right after, two other soldiers appeared. They charged forward together. Kana nimbly dodged and then executed a leg sweep. They were thrown into the air, and Kana took a stance, delivering a blow from midair. She frowned, her lips pressed tightly, as the two soldiers fell gently in front of her. Without waiting long, Kana continued to lead them on their way. Bota looked back in a daze as he walked. The two soldiers weren't dead, just lying flat on the ground groaning. Kana explained as she walked, I just knocked them out temporarily. Don't worry, they're not dead. After running for a while, another soldier spotted them. Over here, they're outside. Dohu quickly led his soldiers in pursuit, bringing the harpoons. Don't let them escape. At that moment, another group in a corner called out urgently. Over here, Kana. Bota was startled and called out, Mr. Personnel Manager. He quickly pointed inside. Right here, he was a little scared. Kana, I can't believe it. Do you know what you just done? Kana just replied faintly, I had no choice. Then, she instructed, go. I'm leaving her here with you. There should be some money left in my room. The old woman was slightly moved. Thank you so much. Then she turned to look at her young grandson. To Bota's surprise, the old woman placed her hand on his head. She said while crying, you will definitely survive. I believe in that. Bota's eyes widened in astonishment. Hearing that, Mao excitedly shouted, Tian saved me. The young man next to him quickly added, me too. Suddenly, Kiho looked at Bota coldly. Talking about him here is against the rules, kid. Then he smiled proudly. But we are very happy to protect his son. Bota was moved to the verge of tears. Sir, but the conversation didn't last long. The soldiers had caught up, got them. Kana hurriedly led the two children to escape. Run. Kiho also led his people to flee. Very quickly, the soldiers led by Dohu closed the distance. Kana, he raised the gun in his hand, gritting his teeth and closing one eye. The barrel aimed precisely at the person in front. Dohu smirked with pleasure. You're finished, Kana. But something unexpected happened. A large bag of goods fell from the sky, blocking his line of sight. But very quickly, someone from above pulled the bag up. He poked his head out fearfully. Sorry, sir. My hand slipped. Dohu looked at the one who had just ruined his plan, angrily scolding. Do you want to die getting in my way? I'm really sorry. Bota turned his head to look at the other person. He seemed to feel Bota's gaze and turned back to smile. Bota's eyes widened in astonishment. People are helping us. Finally, he understood they didn't hate his father that much. Then, he suddenly looked to the side. Not only that, looking at the determined eyes of the person next to him, he thought to himself, Kana is protecting us too. Thank God. At that moment, gun barrels appeared above their heads. Kana quickly hugged Lita into her arms. Bota was hit by arrows, screaming in pain. Right at that moment, Kana appeared, putting out her hand to block the arrows for him. The soldiers above saw this and shouted a report. Over here, we've got her. To protect the Bota siblings, Kana used her body as a shield. Her body was covered in wounds. Bota shouted worriedly, Kana. She quickly reassured him, don't panic. Bota cried and stammered in pain. Why? Why would he go this far for us? Kana's gaze on him was gentler than before. Bota cried and bowed his head. I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Kana looked at him and replied, there's nothing to be sorry for. Her eyes seemed to recall something with a hint of sadness. I'm just repaying an old debt. Bota bit his lip, tears still falling. Kana, she suddenly remembered Tion's words from before. The weak are oppressed by the strong. Her eyes suddenly glistened. Kana murmured, the strong are oppressed by the weak. Tion's advice always echoed in her mind. If you want to survive, you must become strong. Kana glanced at Bota, instructing, if you want to survive, you must become strong. Lita at the side could only look on in confusion, while Bota seemed to understand something. Suddenly, Kana flinched slightly. She quickly turned, protecting the Bota siblings behind her. The sound of footsteps from the distance grew louder. Foolish. Dohu looked mockingly at the three people in front of him. How can you lead them anywhere off this ship? A wicked look appeared in his eyes. Kana pressed her lips together, slowly drawing the sword from her back. Bota gritted his teeth, his face full of hatred, hugging his clueless sister tightly. Kana's posture was resilient, silently encouraging herself. Tion, I have always dedicated everything to my responsibilities. She dragged herself forward, fresh blood dripping with each step. Do you think I'm strong enough now? Her whole body flared with killing intent to protect the children. Dohu's soldiers were a little scared, but he was not. Kana lowered her eyes, as if in thought. Then, she frowned, opening her eyes wide with determination and killing intent. Kana's eyes were filled with murderous rage. Even though she was injured, just looking into those eyes was enough to make the opponent a little worried. Dohu glared at Kana. You bitch, is this how it's going to be? She looked at her opponent without breaking eye contact, coldly calling out, Bota, Lita. He replied with spirit, yes. She didn't turn her head, seeming to know everything here. You kids see that crane behind you? There's a small boat down there. We'll use it to leave. Indeed, a boat had been there on the sea for some time. Seeing the worried faces of the two siblings, she coldly ordered, get there as fast as you can. I'll be there soon. Not forgetting to confirm. Can you do it? Bota understood well, replying yes. Right after, he pulled his sister and started running. Let's go. Dohu saw his prey escaping and hurriedly ordered, fire. Don't let them get away. The soldiers quickly took their firing positions. But unfortunately, Kana was faster, moving like the wind. She quickly and neatly took down two soldiers. She was like an agile squirrel, jumping down. Her sharp sword pierced through the wall, cutting a long line. Doa's men could only look up, watching her actions in fear. A moment later, the bridge where two other soldiers were standing broke in half. In the end, only scraps of iron remained. The three fell as if weightless, along with the terrified screams of the two soldiers. Kana glanced behind her. She quickly turned, decisively attacking the chests of the two. Kana landed gently in front of Doha's men. She stepped back to gain momentum. Then, she quickly shot forward. Here she comes. Doha's men immediately raised their guns. He shouted an order, come on, men. Show her how law and justice are enforced. Show her what betrayal gets you. Kana realized the situation, quickly using her foot to prop up a piece of iron from the ground. She was like a hero charging through a continuous hail of bullets. But sharp iron nails pierced straight into Kana's iron shield. But with a determined will, Kana quickly approached the soldiers. Dohu was startled to see the nail-studded iron sheet growing larger in front of him. He gritted his teeth, hurriedly drawing his sword, Kana. When the iron sheet was right at eye level, he swung his sword to cut it in half, kill. But surprisingly, there was no one behind the iron sheet. He quickly glanced behind him. Just then, a whirlwind appeared above his head. Kana delivered an extremely powerful blow from the top of his head down. Dohu gritted his teeth to defend, watching the sword slowly cut through his weapon. Seeing this, the soldiers rushed forward together, intending to sneak attack Kana. But they were just small fry. Kana gently waved her hand, and they flew in all directions. She weaved through the crowd. Before they could realize it, the person next to them had already fallen. The soldiers slowly fell, but there weren't many left. They could only stare blankly at their comrades who had fallen before they could even act. Kana frowned. It was unclear what she was planning. The remaining soldiers could only retreat in fear, so strong. This is not good, boss. A soldier lying flat on the ground was groaning in pain. Dohu realized her actions and smiled sarcastically. You don't dare to kill them? How can you protect the people being so weak? Kana paid no mind, just replied faintly, is that so? Then, she gently spun the sword in her hand. In a ready-to-attack stance, she coldly asked, so what do you really want? The soldier's eyes widened in fear. Dohu glared and shouted, Kana. He charged forward madly, his face unwilling. Let's see how long you last. Dohu gritted his teeth, raising the weapon in his hand to prepare a counterattack. Kana also refused to back down, quickly preparing. Immediately, the piercing sound of clashing metal rang out. One could feel how powerful the master's blow was. Neither of them gave in, gradually pressing closer to the opponent. Before long, Kana was pushed back. Her injured calf struggled to support her, trembling. Dohu took the opportunity, continuously counterattacking towards Kana. He laughed loudly and provocatively. What's wrong, Kana? Is this all you've got? Kana was silent, but her speed had become much faster. She was like a gust of wind, weaving past Dohu. Just a second later, Dohu's whole body spurted blood. His face still wore a look of bewilderment. His eyes widened, fresh blood spurting from his mouth. Dohu knelt in pain, having to support himself with his sword. Kana coldly ordered, get up. Her eyes were fierce. She asked in a strained voice, you said I couldn't protect the people? Dohu's eyes were bloodshot. He gritted his teeth, unable to believe his eyes. What did you do? But even so, he didn't give up, shouting again and rushing towards his opponent, Kana. Her eyes widened in surprise, but she still reacted in time, quickly blocking the opponent's murderous attack. In another place, damp, gloomy pipes, not a soul in sight. The sound of heavy, panting echoed. The two Bota siblings were continuously running forward. The kids looked up. This is the crane Kana talked about. Following that, they looked down at the boat floating on the water. The one to use is down there. Bota, is that it? Let's go. The kids had just stopped for a moment when someone appeared. The soldier drew his sword while asking, Lita and Bota, right? They surrounded both ends, trapping the Bota siblings in the middle. The soldier gritted his teeth threateningly. Don't even try to run away. Come with me now. Bota glared, gritting his teeth and growling at him. He quickly picked up his sister. Bota used all his strength, running straight for the railing. The soldier's eyes widened in surprise, hurriedly trying to stop him. Stop right there. His foot firmly stepped on the railing. To the astonishment of the soldiers, Bota jumped off the railing. What? The two siblings fell extremely fast, as if weightless. Lita couldn't help but scream in fear. Bota was different. He gritted his teeth to keep from making a sound. His eyes tried to glance down. Very quickly, the two siblings landed on the hanging cargo containers. Seeing this, the soldiers gritted their teeth in anger. You brats. Bota breathed a sigh of relief. Okay, we did it. Lita cried and scolded. That was so scary. The soldier looked at the two siblings relaxing and got angrier. You little rats. He then turned his head and ordered his comrade, get up there and stop that crane. Yes, sir. Bota crossed his arms, mocking them in your dreams. Lita also stuck out her tongue and made a face. But as soon as he finished, the other soldier gently jumped down in front of the kids. The two siblings' expressions immediately froze. The soldier frowned, drawing his weapon. In my dreams, huh? He was merciless, looking coldly at the kids. Sorry, I'm just following orders. The Bota siblings' eyes widened in fear, unable to resist. The lights from inside shone through the glass window. The soldiers were beaten badly, lying everywhere, groaning in pain. The iron hand was also smashed to pieces, severed from its owner's arm. Kana panted, still warily watching the soldiers in front of her. Dohu gasped for breath, leaning back, surrounded by the bodies of his comrades. Even in his current situation, he still smirked provocatively. "If you want to, then kill me, Kana." She was silent, staring at him. But when Kana came before him, Do held his arm and laughed loudly. His attitude was mocking. "You ungrateful type, that's why refugees aren't worth pitying." His eyes were filled with hatred. Useless emotions like pity make it impossible to fight against ruthless bastards like you or Tion. Seeing Kana's expression, he became even more interested. "If those seeds and those cups grow up, they will create chaos just like you did." Doho glanced at her, affirming giving the kids to them was a mistake. "I knew about the boat you hid there. There are people waiting for them." Hearing that, Kana's expression immediately changed. The more she heard, the more she imagined the kids' current situation. Tion's kids are probably dead by now. Dohu bared his teeth, smiling confidently about his plan. "I've finally killed the traitors, root and branch." Kana's eyes immediately widened with worry. She immediately left Dohu, who was laughing like a madman, and ran to find the Bota siblings. Dohu laughed happily like a madman. Run away, Kana, before things get worse." Kana pressed her lips together, speeding up. Bota, Lita. On the other side, as the soldier's attack came down, Bota nimbly dodged. The soldier was slightly startled. This kid, he was a bit disbelieving, staring at the boy in front of him, dodged like a pro. But very quickly, he regained his composure and attacked again. Bota was smart, grabbing the net under the soldier's feet and pulling it hard. Because he was standing on the edge, plus the slipperiness and Bota's strong pull, he fell off the cargo containers. He looked down in fear at the bottomless deep sea. A crash was heard. He fell straight into the water. After managing to get his head up, he threatened angrily, "Don't let me catch you, you brat, if you get caught." But before he could finish, he felt something was wrong. Glancing around, under the dark water, some creature appeared. A sea monster that looked like a frog surfaced, biting into half of his body. The Bota siblings hugged each other, their eyes wide with shock. The soldier screamed in terror, "Save me." Unfortunately, his cries for help were swallowed by the sea monster before long. The sea monster didn't leave immediately, but lingered around the boat, as if waiting for something. The Bota siblings were a little scared. "That's a sea monster. What should we do?" At that moment, a figure appeared above the two siblings. Hearing the sound, the two siblings turned around startled. Kana was tired and panting. The Bota siblings called out happily, "Kana." She was also relieved. "So glad you kids are okay." Bota warned worriedly, "There's a sea monster down there." Kana quickly reassured him, "I can take care of it." She started to climb down, getting into a jumping position. "All right, let's go." Suddenly, a gun barrel appeared from the side of the boat. Kana seemed to have a bad feeling. Bota's jaw also dropped in amazement. A loud explosion rang out before the eyes of all three, and the boat below couldn't escape being involved. Kana gritted her teeth in anger. The Bota siblings shouted in regret, "No, the boat." Another loud explosion rang out. The boat was torn in half like a thin piece of paper, completely destroyed. The three of them, Kana and the kids, quickly laid down on the cargo container, dodging the flying sparks. Dohu appeared again with a savage laugh. "Kana." He laughed mockingly. "I told you, where can you run? I told you so." Kana was startled to see the person who appeared. "Do." The expression on Dohu's face changed. His eyes were like a madman's. His lips curled cruelly. "I've always been annoyed by your presence here." As soon as he finished speaking, the soldiers seemed to understand, immediately raising their guns at the ready. Dohu frowned, his eyes unchanged. Kana and Bota gritted their teeth in anger, feeling a bit resentful. The soldiers lined up in front of the three, seemingly with no intention of sparing them. Dohu smiled gleefully and ordered, "Burn them to death." Kana quickly hugged the two Bota children, turning her back to the soldiers. Gunshots rang out continuously in the night. The spikes once again pierced through Kana, new wounds piling on top of old ones. Finally, due to the overly fierce attack, Kana seemed unable to bear it any longer. Bota closed his eyes, only able to scream in fear. All three of them fell freely from the height. A moment later, all three had disappeared beneath the deep water. Bota, Lita, and Kana were unconscious, blood from countless wounds mixing with the seawater. They slowly sank. Perhaps this was the end. Around them was only the pitch black of the sea, eerily quiet. The boy, the girl, and Kana, they were on the verge of death. Suddenly, from the depths of the sea, two beams of light flashed, like the eyes of a monster, shining directly at the three who were slowly sinking. A giant shadow shot forward like an arrow, heading towards where the three were drifting aimlessly. In a flash, the giant object stopped right in front of Bota. Blood from him, Gita, and Kana dyed a whole area of the sea red. Ahead, the giant shadow gradually became clear. It turned out to be a submarine. It stood silently in front of the 3 floating people. Inside the giant submarine, a man wearing a diving helmet asked the person next to him, "Juan, did the wreckage of the burning ship from above fall down?" He looked serious and replied, "Not sure." His eyes looked sharply ahead. Only by doing this will they think they are dead. Kana, the boy, and Gita were unconscious, illuminated by the submarine's lights. They had been saved from a hair's breadth from death. After the near-death experience in the deep sea, time flew by, for years have passed. The sea was calm. The evening sun dyed the fluffy clouds yellow, creating a scene that was both beautiful and sad. Far away on the vast sea after 4 years, a port stood majestically with giant rocks jutting out, looking like castles reaching for the blue sky from a distance. Flocks of seagulls glided towards the port, which looked like a ruin submerged by the sea. This place is called Oasis Port. Oasis Port was built on a giant shipwreck, surrounded by houses, rooms, and bases that had been erected. This large ship, its dark red hull faded and worn by time, still clearly showed the words Union Hong Kong. Everywhere in the port was built with metal. Seagulls flew around. We could see more clearly the age of Oasis Port. The docked ships were also patched together from large iron plates. Behind them were broken rocks stacked on top of each other, with iron poles stuck all over. The lighthouse, or observation tower of Oasis Port, stood majestically amidst the fierce sea. In front of the observation tower were sharp iron poles pointing out to sea to stop sea monsters, their white skeletons still scattered on the iron poles. From one side, on a large rock, the silhouette of a giant sword was stuck firmly down. Getting closer, the appearance of the sword became clear, standing alone on the rock, facing the sea. Moreover, the sword looked old, as if it had gone through countless battles or long days of hard training with its master. At this moment, a strong hand gripped the hilt of the sword. A close-up image of a confident young man appeared, taking his sword. He is the boy from 4 years ago, who nearly died at the bottom of the cold sea, now has become strong. Bota, 17 years old. Under the clear blue sky, in a peaceful atmosphere, Bota, 17 years old, with fair skin, a determined gaze, carrying a sword on his back, looked incredibly cool. The boy, holding a crossbow, jumped into the sea, diving deep into the ruins. He didn't wear an oxygen tank, but still nimbly dived down to the old ruins. On his way down to explore, he swam past 2 people in full diving gear, also searching in the ruins. At a certain point, he slowly stopped, swimming inside. Suddenly, he stopped halfway, floating in the water, his mind thinking again, "They won't believe me if I'm too weak. That must be it." Bota thought for a moment, then swam quickly into the old room, thinking as he swam, "I'd better find it." Suddenly, he noticed something, turned his head, and changed direction to swim towards it. A rusty iron door had caught Bota's attention. He looked at it for a moment. After observing for a while, he took a long iron rod, swam gradually towards the door, thinking to himself, "It must be here." Getting closer to the door, he used his iron rod to poke at the room number plate 301 to remove it. From somewhere behind him, a beautiful large pink fish swam by, making him turn his head to look, forgetting what he was doing. He quietly swam closer to the pink fish that was leisurely swimming. Bota, from behind it, raised his iron rod, aiming precisely at its position, his face full of confidence. "Looks like we have a snack for tonight." Suddenly, behind him, the old toilet in the room started bubbling up with countless air bubbles, the sound getting louder and louder. A loud noise erupted. A long, dark shadow, both fast and decisive, emerged from it, right behind him. A sea serpent, full of killing intent, its eyes staring at him as if it wanted to eat him alive. Bota had also realized the danger behind him. He froze. The head of the sea serpent monster was slowly approaching him from behind. His eyes were terrified. He gritted his teeth and spun around. From a hunter, he had now become the prey, a venomous sea serpent. Quick as a flash, the venomous sea serpent bared its fangs, opened its jaws wide, and lunged to attack him. But even so, Bota quickly realized and dodged the venomous sea serpent's attack. Although the serpent didn't bite him, its jaws snapped shut on the fish he had intended to hunt earlier. It coiled in the seawater like a snail, its jaws quickly gobbling up the fish. Beside it, he silently exclaimed, "That's terrifying." Suddenly, it stopped eating the fish and turned to growl at him. He continued, its fangs. He calmly observed the venomous serpent staring at him. Instead of being scared, he was very confident, smiling, pulling out a small dagger. Looking at the venomous sea serpent, "It's showtime, isn't it?" His eyes provoked it. He smirked confidently. "A light touch is enough to finish you. Bring it on, sweetie." Seeing this, the venomous serpent opened its sharp jaws wide, approached, growled at him, and then rushed forward like a moth to a flame. A venomous sea serpent 3 or 4 times his size was lunging with its mouth wide open, seemingly able to swallow him whole. The battle reached a climax and then ended, leaving only a streak of red blood spreading in the water. Above the shore, a flock of seagulls flew by. A group of people stood still on the port, looking down at the sea, waiting. Mao stood anxiously on the port, arms crossed, staring down at the sea, quite worried. The kid hasn't surfaced. A young man next to him added a sentence that made him even more worried. Maybe he had an accident. As soon as he finished speaking, there was movement below. Air bubbles rose. He surfaced, out of breath, gasping for fresh air. While he was swimming toward the port, everyone on top breathed a sigh of relief, complaining, "There he is, you're so late." When he surfaced, his iron rod was more visible. He was carrying the carcasses of both the venomous sea serpent and the pink fish on his back. He calmly sighed, complaining to everyone, "I ran into a venomous sea serpent." As soon as he got ashore, he put the venomous serpent down, soaking wet. Everyone around gathered to look at his achievement, discussing, "This one bit my son's leg. Bota is pretty bold, huh?" His face beamed, full of confidence upon hearing the praise. He replied happily, "See, that's my skill, a simple trick." Behind him, Mao looked at him smugly and asked, "Stop bragging, kid. I told you to do a diving test. I didn't ask you to go hunting." He held out his hand in front of the boy and continued, "Did you touch the number plate?" The boy smiled smugly, fumbling around his body. "Get ready, room 301, right? I got it." It seems Bota realized he had been too careless and forgotten the test's objective. His eyes filled with panic. The atmosphere around him darkened. His face began to grimace, sweat pouring down. He covered his mouth. "Wait, I think I left it down there." Hearing that, Mao pointed at him and shouted angrily, blaming Bota for his carelessness. "You talk so big. Go for another round, kid." Despite being scolded, he could still talk back sharply, "You told me to brag." Suddenly from behind, an urgent but joyful voice shouted, "Treasure." He fell silent, surprised, turning to look behind. Treasure. Everyone's face was as stiff as a board upon hearing the announcement. "It's a huge relic." He was flustered, looking at the bewildered boy and then behind him, hurriedly saying, "What treasure?" "Well, that's enough testing for today." Everyone in the team reacted, running out. What about him? Only he was left standing there, looking bewildered. Jaco Gusto's team found some relics, very large ones, really. Bota was surprised. He had never seen a relic that made everyone so happy. A very large relic. Everyone gathered near the port's edge, waiting expectantly, shouting, and looking at the object the machine was pulling up. "Hurry up. It's coming." The thing being pulled up was a moss-covered container, looking very old. Everyone was amazed. "It's huge." He stood next to Mao, speaking in a small, disappointed voice. "It's just a shabby old container." He looked at the boy, explaining, "Kid." His eyes were full of excitement, but also very serious. From a distance, looking at the relic container, a firm statement, "That's treasure." The large container was lifted up, placed on the port, covered in moss and barnacles, somewhat rotten. Our ancestors created them to provide for future generations before the world was flooded. When the relic container was opened, all the medical supplies and food poured out. He continued to explain, "They prepared food, medicine, clothes, and other necessities for us. Each item, despite the passage of time, still looked new on the outside. These are relics left by people from a century ago." He continued, "Left for the future generation." Jaco, the team leader, picked up a medical kit, looking at it happily. Everyone around cheered excitedly. "Look at this. It's medical supplies. They're all group, and well done, Jaco Gusto." Behind the crowd, an old man in an old suit, leaning on a cane, walked closer. A person walking ahead said, "Make way. The guild master is coming. Make way for him." The old guild master walked up with a kind and welcoming face, took Jaco's hand. "Congratulations, Jaco. You did it. You're a true explorer." Jaco, he humbly shook the guild master's hand, saying happily, "Thank you, sir." Everyone, including Mao, looked at them in amazement. So the rumors were true. The people around who saw the real relic smiled happily, admiringly, saying in disbelief, "There are huge relics under the ruins." They rushed to the port's edge, excitement clear on their faces. "Let's parachute down to the ruins. Let's go loot that place." Seeing everyone so enthusiastic, Bota was gradually drawn into that emotion. He was excited. "This is intense." Bota's eyes widened in amazement. They looked so interested. The guild master happened to walk by and called him over. "Bota." Seeing him, the boy quickly replied politely, "Mr. Guild Master." The guild master kindly inquired, "Have you passed the test yet?" Mao glanced at the boy, answering for him. He deemed him too weak to cross the rough sea. The young man immediately got annoyed, always wanting to tear his eyes out. The brother reminded, "I told you I reached room 301. Mao just rubbed the boy's head, his voice a sweet whisper. "I guarantee he will be used useful to our association. The old man still maintained his gentle smile, his eyes sparkling with hope. I'm really looking forward to it. His eyes narrowed. Then he suddenly spoke up, speaking of which. Looking at the young man with a face as bright as car headlights in front of him, he nodded in praise. You've matured quite a bit since you came here. Bota still maintained the attitude of a good student, politely replying, I am very grateful for your help. The kind guild master, with half-closed eyes, gently proclaimed, we do not abandon the lost. Explorers are always welcome. Looking towards the towering building, which now looked incredibly shabby and dilapidated, he gave a heartfelt instruction, always strive to find treasure. It's all for the benefit of Oasis. Right at this port, the Great Oasis Port was majestically built from buildings stacked on top of each other, like Lego below. All the data seems to have been set up because relics are found in every nook and cranny of the ruins. Oasis Port itself contains a whole warehouse of supplies hidden beneath its mineral deposits. Thousands of spears bristling around the lighthouse look like an impregnable fortress, protected by countless defensive structures, so the people inside are absolutely safe. Moreover, the water here is crystal clear, and the best part is that this area is in a no-see monster zone. A huge iron object was just salvaged. Perhaps this is when the rumors about giant relics started to go viral everywhere. Thousands of patched-up, old boats raced towards the island, attracting refugees from all over like a festival. And our team is one of them. This place doesn't pick and choose. Everyone is welcome. The guild master stood in the center of the town, his face beaming, arms outstretched as if to embrace the whole world, welcoming the stream of refugees. Welcome to Oasis, explorers. Here the treasure belongs to whoever finds it. It's all yours. The crowd gathered below. They cheered enthusiastically like cheering for an idol, for sure. Moreover, the people here are friendly, super nice to them. 1,000 arms raised in response, pointing at the dilapidated building, shouting, deeper, further. Doe, a case of a different ideology with a handsome face with no bad angles, unlike those who specialize in body-shaming refugees. The whole town appeared clearly, and no refugee dared to approach the ship he controlled. The island just floated aimlessly in the middle of the sea, but the Great Oasis Port was on a completely different level. Mao and Bota walked and chatted animatedly. In Oasis, finding an exclusive treasure for yourself will make you rich. This place is truly a diver's paradise. Diving deep, and for a long time like Mr. Van Leg, is a real advantage. Bota cast his gaze out to the distant sea. His voice is firm as a nail. I don't plan on being a diver forever. Mao's jaw dropped when he heard that. He asked immediately, so you want to do something else in the future? He spun around, his determined gaze as if wanting to burn the person opposite him. Looking straight at him, I will become a Hokage, a hunter, just kidding. Hearing Bota flex his dream, Mao laughed as if he'd won the lottery, his voice extremely sarcastic. There are no sea monsters here. What will you hunters eat? Then he pointed to the observation tower, giving a living example. Look at those guards, they can't survive on that salary. The young man seemed very discouraged, shouting, shut up. The young man looked up at the sky, chin in hand, and began to recount. There was a kid who also ran away and claimed he wanted to become a Hokage. Reaching a certain point, Mao blurted out the guy's name. His name was Brun, I think. Remembering Brun's fierce appearance, he silently called his name in his head, Brun. His eyes widened in surprise. He from here? Then he glanced at Mao, calling softly Mao. Bota carried his things with one hand and ran after Mao with the other, constantly asking, why are we going together? I think we should throw a party for your failure, shouldn't we? Suddenly, from a small boat nearby, Lita waved her hands frantically. Bota, looking at the excited girl, her hands and feet moving nonstop, waving at him as if it was the most natural thing. Bota. Seeing the little girl, Mao also called back happily, Lita. Lita tiptoed over, politely greeting, hello, Mr. Mao. The young man pointed to the dangling fish, asking immediately, where's Kana? The little girl answered honestly, I haven't seen her for a while. Mao's face turned gray upon hearing that. He sighed sadly. She's not here, huh? Lita's mind worked faster than a computer, asking him directly, so you came here to see her? The three of them leisurely left the boat, heading straight home. As soon as they reached the door, Bota opened it slightly, his voice a whisper, I'm home. He looked around his empty room. After observing for a moment, his eyes fell on a still warm glass of water. Kana. He quietly approached, standing motionless by the glass of water. As if having located the intruder, his eyes blazed, his killing intent so thick it seemed he wanted to finish off the opponent. His hand tightened on the steel rod. He carefully assessed the situation. Suddenly, from behind, a strange object flew towards him in a sneak attack. The surprise attack made his head hit the table hard. Luckily, with lightning-fast reflexes, he managed to dodge in time, leaping far away. Strangely, his eyes were now filled with a smile. The woman opposite witnessed his performance. Her movements, as smooth as flowing water and drifting clouds, couldn't help but praise. Not bad. Kana pointed with the iron rod, her mouth full of praise. You've gotten faster. Suddenly she raised her hand to stop him. Wait, Kana. But ignoring the premonition and his attempt to stop her, she charged forward to attack. Kana closed in, her voice challenging. Is defending all you know how to do? The boy still tried to be patient, reminding her, wait a moment, Kana. The boy was helpless, shouting a warning, we have a guest. Just as the two were in the middle of an intense fight, Mao pushed the door open and burst in. Kana, I heard her voice. Hearing the door open, the girl was embarrassed, squatting down and covering her face. Oh no. The moment Mao saw the scene inside, his face turned red as a beet. The small room was as chaotic as a broken market. It was hard to describe. He stood frozen at the door, unable to process the situation. When Kana saw it was him, she breathed a sigh of relief. Mr. Mao, thank God you're here. The young man stood outside the door, his face darkened after hearing that, while the boy with the rod inside was sweating profusely. The hands holding the rod began to tremble violently. Mao boiled with anger, rushing forward to punch him, shouting, how dare you hit your poor sister? His hands tightened on the rod. Facing a fatal blow, his body trembled instinctively. Mao gathered all his strength, landing a powerful punch on Bota's face, the force so great that his head snapped back. His face was distorted as if from a faulty filter. How dare you hit your poor, dear sister? Mao was furious, grabbing a nearby bottle of wine, raising it threateningly, his other hand pointing straight at Bota's face, his voice full of indignation. I thought you were a good person. Who are you calling pitiful? Kana looked mysterious, placing a finger on her lips as a sign of silence, her eyes as dangerous as daggers. Bota was frozen by Kana's cool demeanor, his eyes wide with confusion as he looked at her. Mao was furious, grabbing Bota's collar and shaking him like crazy, making him see the world spin. A loud meowing sound rang in his ears like a loudspeaker, making his head buzz. Bota spun like a top. Let me teach you a lesson. Stop it. The vast sea swallowed the entire city, a once thriving place, now so devastated it was unrecognizable. The once proud skyscrapers were now just ruins, leaning and crooked with none of their former majesty. The already fragile wall cracked wide open with just a few light touches, revealing a hole. The small hole was chiseled out, the crack widened, forming a hole large enough for an adult to crawl through. Two divers, fully equipped, shone their flashlights inside. Checking the situation, we've breached it. Seeing nothing unusual, the two followed the newly opened path, heading deeper inside. I think we're the first ones here. One of the two picked up a metal bottle, examining it closely, finally concluding with certainty it's almost completely unexplored. The other guy glanced sideways at his friend. Looking annoyed, he snorted with contempt. Don't bother with the cheap stuff. That's just useless junk. T-Ho cast his gaze out to the vast sea, a glimmer of hope rising in his heart. He turned to chat with his colleague. If only we could hit the jackpot like Jocko Gusto, that would be great. T-Ho found a long iron rod, turning it into a weapon, and began smashing an old washing machine, which was corroded from being submerged in seawater for a long time, looking pathetic. Let's see. Another washing machine. T-Ho was busy working when he suddenly felt something strange behind him. He turned his head curiously. A sharp steel rod pierced through T-Ho's chest so fast that he couldn't react, his eyes staring in horror at the weapon, blood from the wound spreading, dyeing a whole area of water red. The red blood spread like a horror painting. T-Ho's comrades saw it and turned pale, turning back to be frozen by the sight before him. T-Ho was lifted up by another diver, the steel rod still stuck in his chest, blood pouring from the wound. The fatal wound, combined with his struggling resistance, gradually exhausted T-Ho, his throat choked, unable to breathe, his mouth filled with a metallic taste of blood. Mori was terrified, trying to calm himself after the shock, screaming his name, T-Ho. He stared at the strange diver, his heart full of vigilance, a walking red flag. The glass on the man's mask had a hole in it, dark inside, making it impossible to identify the face behind the mask. Mori boiled with rage, his eyes bloodshot, shouting, "Who are you?" The other guy said nothing, throwing T-Ho straight at Mori, taking advantage of his obscured vision to suddenly attack. The space fell into an eerie silence, leaving only the desolation of the ruined buildings. Flocks of fish swam freely, weaving through the ruins. The smell of blood mixed with the salty taste of the seawater, drifting with the current. The diving suit also dyed a deep red, an arm hanging limp, lifeless, taking its last breath. Te Ho and Mori, two unlucky souls, were attacked, lost all their vitality, and were dragged away by that strange diver, each hand holding a leg. Being dragged across the floor, the diving suit scraped against the cracked stone, creating a piercing screech. He dragged the bodies, heading deep into the dark corridor, his figure gradually disappearing into the darkness. The corridor returned to its silent, mysterious state, deep and bottomless. On the surface, rain poured down, thunder roared, the sky was gloomy and misty. Like a bad omen, the lonely house in the middle of the sea had to endure fierce waves and torrential downpours like a storm. But it still stood strong, stubbornly resisting the wrath of the heavens. Inside the room, Lita huddled on the bed, so scared she had to cover her ears tightly, her mouth constantly screaming. Kana sat on the next bed, gently reassuring her, "It's okay. Lita will be better tomorrow." Lita opened her sparkling eyes wide, looking at Kana with a fragile expression, her voice pleading, "I'm so scared, Kana. Can we sleep together tonight?" Kana glanced at the tiny single bed, feeling helpless, but this bed is too small. Lita didn't seem to mind, jumping off the bed in a flash and heading towards Kana. The little girl suddenly threw her arms around Kana, nuzzling her small face into her chest. Kana was frozen for a few seconds by this sudden action. Lita's sweet voice rang in her ear, "You just have to hold on tight like this." Lita, feeling wronged, nestled into Kana's arms as beautiful memories of the past flooded back. Her innocent face tinged with sadness, she recounted in a tiny voice, "My dad always held me to sleep whenever there was a storm." With his hands clasped behind his neck, leaning against the headboard, Bota was overthinking life. Because Lita kept bringing up the past, he became irritable. "Come on, how long will it be before you stop constantly talking about your father, Lita?" Lita's eyes welled up with tears, choked up and unable to speak. Kana lowered her eyes, looking at Lita's fragile form, an indescribable feeling rising in her heart, a mix of pity for the little girl. Bota realized he had said the wrong thing and also fell silent. The atmosphere became suffocatingly tense. Lita lay completely in Kana's arms, the little girl hugging her sister figure tightly, closing her eyes to feel the warmth. Lita smiled, a smile from the bottom of her heart. "To me, Kana, you're like a big sister. We eat together, we sleep together, it's like we're a family." The little girl's sincere words caused ripples in the calm lake of Kana's heart. Family. The image of a family of three, with a father, a mother, and a young Kana smiling brightly, chattering away. A family, you say? That picture-perfect scene didn't last long. They sacrificed themselves in a monster attack, ever since that fateful day. The beautiful memory of a home, of Kana's parents happily surprising her, giving her a gift of a castle, just like in a fairy tale. I just want to forget the beautiful memories of the past. What was beautiful eventually faded away, the chaotic scene gradually replacing moments of peace and happiness. Kana was swept into the crowd of people fleeing in panic. There, human bodies were piled on top of each other, weighing her down so she couldn't escape. Remembering those things, her heart ached as if it were being cut. The giant monsters relentlessly hunted people, treating humans as a delicacy to be savored. They were terrifyingly huge. The crystal ball held sweet memories of a happy home. What would it be like if I had a family? She bowed her head, silently watching Lita sleeping soundly beside her. The little girl had fallen asleep, but her face still showed tension and anxiety. Kana was lost in thought. Her gaze towards Lita also held a hidden sorrow. Her hand gently stroked Lita's soft hair, lightly touching her brow, caressing the space between her eyebrows. Like a sedative, Lita felt safer, gradually relaxing, then sinking into a peaceful sleep. Dawn broke. The ground was still damp from the night's rain, each footstep treading softly on the cracked earth. Bota and Kana walked side by side amidst the rubble. He turned to ask Kana, "More training?" Kana's eyes flashed with doubt as she glanced at Bota. Bota looked away distractedly. "I'm ready. I can fight anywhere, but it's too quiet here, isn't it?" He sighed, his voice tinged with compromise. "It's fine, I guess." Kana's expression suddenly darkened, her eyes full of vigilance, her tone sarcastic. "That sounds strange. Is a quiet problem?" Bota flared up, turning to question Kana. "Hey, I can't know how strong I am if all I do is train. I want to prove myself." Kana's sharp gaze bored into Bota, her voice firm as she retorted, "Is that what you want, to prove yourself?" Caught off guard, Bota froze on the spot. Not knowing what else to say, it's just that. Kana paid no mind, calmly speaking as if making small talk. There are laborers who dedicate their entire lives just to try and earn more stars. The more she spoke, the more bewildered Bota became, as if he understood but didn't, his mind a tangled mess. Honor, greed, and arrogance are what drive them. Kana gave a faint smile, walking past Bota, her voice echoing from behind, and the result is always death. Kana seemed to be speaking to Bota, but also reminding herself, "Don't ever make their mistakes, Kana. A crowd of villagers gathered in one spot, curiously examining something, the sound of whispers carrying from a distance. Kana and Bota, standing not far away, were also curious and moved closer. A strange object lay flattened on the ground, giving goosebumps to everyone who came to see. A villager exclaimed in fear, "What is that?" Bota approached, looking at the strange thing on the ground, his heart full of confusion. This thing was truly beyond his comprehension. Mao saw him and walked over, himself unsure of what it was, hesitantly guessing they must have been shipwrecked by last night's storm. Bota and Kana were both dumbfounded, speechless. Oh my god, the strange creature turned out to be a massive monster, shaped exactly like a giant tyrannical squid. Its body was covered in holes, just like the mouths of coral, and it had 2 legs growing from its torso, an appearance so ugly it would scare away ghosts and demons. The leg sticking out was clearly a human leg. The monster's head had several short tentacles, and its mouth constantly secreted a sticky slime. A bewildered villager asked, "Is that a human leg there? Is it eating people?" A young man in a blue scarf suddenly realized something. He turned and said, "I just noticed the 2 divers from yesterday still haven't returned." Mao grabbed a long iron rod, approached the monster, and tightened his grip on the weapon, his mind made up. Whatever it is, we can't just leave it here. Mao's eyes showed a flicker of hesitation before becoming resolute. Staring at the monster, he said decisively, "Chop it up and throw it into the sea." The iron rod swung, plunging into the monster's body. Struck by the rod, the monster reacted violently. The human leg on its body thrashed about, letting out a terrible cry. The leg flailed wildly, trying to struggle, as if signaling something. The head with its short tentacles swayed nonstop. The surrounding crowd fled in terror. It's still alive. The guild master remained max-level calm. Looking at the monster writhing on the ground, he slowly approached, ignoring the villagers' warnings. "Be careful, guild master." He grasped the arrow embedded in the monster's body and pulled it out forcefully. Then once again, he brought his hand down, stabbing the arrow straight in, quick and decisive. The arrow sank deep into the monster's flesh. It writhed in pain, fresh blood spraying everywhere, but it couldn't hide the guild master's grim, terrifying face. The guild master kept a tight grip on the arrow, applying more force, deepening the wound. A perfectly aimed stab to a weak point, completely cutting off the monster's life force. It struggled in vain, its strength gradually fading. The human leg that had been struggling violently now hung limp, lifeless. For a moment, the leg twitched reflexively, trembling uncontrollably before gradually falling still. Its life force gone. The foot could no longer support itself, collapsing to the ground along with the monster's tentacles, which also drooped one by one. Bota was horrified, his eyes glued to the monster's corpse, his throat dry. "Guild master, what is that? A sea monster?" The guild master smiled gently, turning to look at him, the monster's blood still on his old face. "There's no such thing as a sea monster here, Bota." His eyes slowly widened, brimming with killing intent, his aura becoming dangerous, the powerful gaze of a formidable figure. "It's just a dead fish." Bota stared at the guild master, stunned, feeling as if he were looking at a stranger. Kana seemed calmer, calmly observing the guild master, but deep down, both were completely shocked by his words and actions. Kana just stood there, saying nothing. A tattered blanket was hung neatly on the line, the gentle breeze caressing it. Lita worked diligently, tried her best to hang the blanket on the clothesline that was taller than her. Her small hand smoothed the blanket and secured it with a clip, lest the wind blow it away. Humming a few tunes as she worked, she seemed to be in high spirits today. Lita stood on the shore, her back to the sea, engrossed in her work. Suddenly, from behind, under the water, the helmet of a professional diving suit slowly emerged. The little girl faintly heard the sound of disturbed water and turned her head doubtfully. She looked down, staring intently below as people in diving suits slowly rose from the sea. "That looks like Mori's diving suit, but inside that familiar suit, is it someone she knows?" The diver took heavy steps, following the rocks to the shore, to Lita's astonishment. The little girl's eyes widened, surprised to see the diver approaching her. Seawater streamed down his body, slowly dripping off. The steel diving helmet looked heavy. As he got closer, he collapsed from exhaustion, falling to his knees, having to use his hands to balance himself to keep from falling flat on his face. With trembling hands, he struggled to remove the helmet on his head. Because the steel helmet was so heavy, the diver fumbled for a while before he could take it off. The heavy helmet fell into the water with a white splash. Lita, standing on the shore, was utterly shocked, quickly covering her mouth with her hand. Mori wasn't game over yet. He had escaped from that cold-blooded killer diver, but due to the attack, Mori was severely injured. As soon as he got the helmet off, he was exhausted, gasping for breath, his face pale, his eyes bloodshot, blood smeared all over his face. trickling from between his teeth, his mouth filled with a metallic taste of blood. Lita frantically called his name, "Mr. Mori." The little girl rushed into the water, running towards Mori, calling out as she ran, "Mr. Mori." Mori. Mori's body had no strength left. He fell backward, but luckily Lita caught him in time. She anxiously asked what was wrong. Mori weakly called the little girl's name. "What's wrong, Mr. Mori?" Lita. A dull pain shot through Mori's chest again, and he coughed up a mouthful of blood. His strength depleted. Mori lay sprawled on the shore, despite Lita's efforts to support him. The little girl worriedly called his name loudly. Seeing Mori unresponsive, Lita panicked, shouting for help. "Mr. Mori, is anyone there to help?" She tried to scream as loud as she could, hoping someone would hear, her heart trembling with fear. "Please, call someone." Lita's hand was suddenly gripped tightly by Mori. She turned back in surprise, hearing Mori's weak voice. "Run." His eyes were wide, his pupils constricted. Blood began to trickle from the corners of his eyes. His mind hazy, he uttered in panic, "They are that thing." His face was filled with horror, his eyes lifeless, blood streaming from his 7 orifices, looking extremely creepy. He kept muttering, "Sea monsters. The sea monsters are here." With those words, he fainted. Lita, terrified, hugged Mori, gently shaking him, trying to wake him up, "Sir." Lita's piercing scream echoed throughout the base, "Mr. Mori." The sky was clear blue, with white clouds drifting lazily. The base on the small island was bathed in the early morning sun, as if being revitalized. In contrast to the peaceful exterior inside the meeting room, the atmosphere was as tense as a stretched string. Everyone was arguing fiercely. The guild master sat in the middle, his face pensive, deep in thought. "We have to destroy that mining area. 2 people are already dead. And how are we supposed to live after that? What's the point of having a lot of money? If you have a lot of money, but you're dead, who's going to spend it?" Bota's face was still filled with shock. He turned to ask Lita, who was standing anxiously beside him, "Did he really say there were sea monsters?" "That's what I heard." The guild master slammed his hand on the table, his voice irritable. "Enough." The room fell dead silent, becoming unusually quiet. The guild master stood up and calmly analyzed. "As we know, this place is completely within the safe zone, and there are no sea monsters." He lowered his eyes, his expression sorrowful as he recalled haunting memories. "This reminds me of the accident 3 years ago." Everyone also recalled the event from 3 years ago, their hearts suddenly heavy. Thinking of the scene from that year, fear was evident on everyone's face. That time, the guild master continued. "The divers said they were attacked by sea monsters, which led to a huge panic." He used his words to paint a picture. A group of divers were trying to dig and break through walls to create an entrance into collapsed tall buildings, with the intention of hunting for treasure, but it turned out they were just busy fighting with others, so they couldn't snag any good relics for themselves. The buzzcut guy remembered the incident and nodded in agreement with the guild master, turning to the person next to him and whispering, "That's right, they also blamed it on the appearance of sea monsters." That group found a treasure sealed in a protective safe. They were all clamoring to find a way to open it, wanting to break the safe to get the treasure inside. Their greed was so great that they were willing to take out others, just to get a larger share. 2 of them were whispering, making plans. Then last year, there was another rumor about the existence of sea monsters in Area B3. The guild master bluntly exposed the truth of the case from 3 years ago. They just lied like that to keep others away from their spot, and then those things just kept happening on and on. The guild master's story had touched the villagers' trust, and doubts arose in their hearts. That's right, that's why everyone was scared and stayed away from that area for a while. The guild master showed a look of deep pain, his voice choked with emotion. "Based on what happened in the past, we can't blindly believe Mr. Mori's words and destroy the Ermine like that." Suddenly, a voice cut in, breaking the emotional flow and catching the guild master's attention. "So what reason would he have to lie?" Bota, the righteous young man, frankly expressed his opinion. Those might have been the last words he wanted to say to warn everyone that they were in danger. The old eyes looked at Bota, the guild master's expression a little unnatural, his voice gentle. "Bota." Before the guild master could finish, Lita interrupted loudly. "It's true." Her voice was firm, her young face showing urgency, a little afraid that people wouldn't believe her. Mr. Mori was really scared then. He said there really were sea monsters and told us we had to run. Min was more inclined to believe a child like Lita. Besides, he was also worried about Mori and everyone's safety if monsters really did appear. So Min spoke up in Lita's defense. Mori isn't the type of person to lie. The guild master, having been interrupted, was a bit annoyed, but on the outside, he maintained an awkward expression, clearing his throat. Just as everyone was deep in thought, not knowing what to do, a voice rang out. "All right, I'll go down and take a look." Everyone was surprised, their eyes all turning towards the source of the sound. A middle-aged man took a step forward, boldly facing everyone's gaze. The explorer, Jocko Gusto. Is that Jocko? He spoke, breaking the tense atmosphere in the meeting room. We can't give up the precious items our ancestors left behind. I will go down and check if there really are sea monsters or not. Lita, restless with worry, approached and asked, "But Mr. Jocko, what will happen if there really are sea monsters there like Mr. Mori said?" Jocko gently reassured Lita, his eyes glancing towards the door as two figures slowly entered. "Don't worry, little girl. We will destroy them if they appear." A girl with a stunning figure, carrying a huge blade on her shoulder, and a burly, bearded man with an arsenal of weapons behind him, wearing a red hat that covered half his face. After all, we're no different from the laborers in the floating city. The girl who had just entered spoke up with a greeting, her smile full of cunning. Sonia. The man in the red hat was introduced as Gonta Park. As soon as they heard the identities of the two new guests, everyone exclaimed in unison. Even the guildmaster was no exception. Laborers. Kana cast a scrutinizing gaze, sweeping over the two newly arrived laborers, remaining silent. A sense of vigilance towards this group rose within Kana. Bota was also deeply shocked, whipping his head around to look at the group Jocko had introduced, his heart pounding. They're laborers. Sonia and Gonta stood there, their presence overwhelming. On Sonia's arm was an extremely cool tattoo, standing out against her fair skin. The tattoo was a circle, and inside was a meticulously designed crossbow. Bota stared at the tattoo on Sonia's arm, a guess already forming in his mind. "O-Star, huh? They don't have any battlefield experience." The guild master was as happy as could be, his surprise turning to joy. "Former laborers, you say? That's reliable. Hey, Jocko Gusto." He gripped Jaco's hand tightly, his tone pleading earnestly. "Please check on this for the safety of Oasis." The guild master gripped his hand tightly, full of gratitude. "Thank you so much, Jocko Gusto." Bota hesitated, the words on the tip of his tongue, not knowing how to say it right. Bota clenched his fists, took a deep breath, his eyes becoming resolute. He shouted loudly, "Let me go too." Lita was taken aback by Bota's request. She turned to him, calling his name in astonishment. "Bota." The guild master was also surprised by his words. "Bota, that's admirable, but are you sure?" Bota argued forcefully to convince Jocko and the guild master. "I'm not looking down on them, but isn't it better to have more people?" Jocko didn't seem to mind much, replying coolly, "At least he can carry things." "All right, I agree." Sonia looked amused, approaching Bota. "You're cute, what the—" Sonia stood on her toes, pulled Bota's face closer, and then gently licked his cheek, making Bota's skin crawl and freezing him on the spot. "Don't worry, I'll protect you, kid." Both Lita and Kana were completely shocked. Before she was done teasing Bota, Sonia cheerfully walked away, leaving Bota standing there like a statue. Gonta kindly reminded her, "Sonia, stop teasing the kid." "Teasing? I'm serious." Sonia, mischievously, gave Bota a flirtatious glance. "It's strange." Bota, having just recovered from the shock, dazedly touched the spot Sonia had touched. "That kid looks really good with me." Gonta looked Bota up and down, then said disdainfully to Sonia, "Where the hell? It's called a woman's intuition." Two more people also volunteered to join. "We want to go too." The blonde-haired guy tried to persuade, hoping Jocko would agree. "We've worked with Tae-ho for a long time. At least let him have a proper burial." Jocko smiled faintly. "All right, I think our team is set for now." The floating island welcomed the warm rays of sunlight, enjoying a brief moment of peace. Tomorrow, they would set off. The sword, shaped like a giant box cutter, forged from steel, looked incredibly cool, but the blade bore the marks of time, with a few scratches and a bit of rust. Bota slung the sword on his back, turned, and strode away. Lita hurriedly ran after him, calling out incessantly, "Bota, don't go." She was so worried she was about to cry, running up to persuade him. What if there really are sea monsters? Bota turned back, his gaze reassuring Lita. He smiled, his voice gentle. "That's why I have to go." Bota had made up his mind, and it was hard for anyone to stop him. Lita was so angry she stomped her feet. "I can't miss this opportunity." "Opportunity? Is that what this is about? What if you die?" Kana stepped forward, a little uneasy herself. "Bota, do you really want to go?" Kana looked away, silent for a moment, saying nothing. When she looked up, her expression had brightened. She looked at Bota and smiled lightly, as if in support. Lita, who thought Kana would join her in persuading Bota, looked at her in surprise. "Well, good luck, Kana." Bota quickly joined Jaco's group. After walking a short distance, he turned back, smiled brightly, and waved goodbye. "I'll be back soon." The villagers on the floating island saw Jaco's group off. Sonia and the others were already inside the vessel, while Jocko stood on the port, constantly urging the lagging Bota from behind. "Hurry up, Bota, we have to go now." Lita, unable to stop him, turned and grabbed Kana's shirt, her voice full of blame. "Kana, why didn't you stop him?" "I couldn't, Lita." Kana watched Bota's figure disappear into the vessel, an indescribable feeling rising in her heart. The submarine's hatch slowly closed, the lock secured tightly. The vessel began its journey, embarking on a perilous adventure. Bota sat next to Sonya, his face pensive, while Jocko also began to calculate their plan. He's searching for his own path. Bota's eyes shone with determination. He was looking for something for himself. He's becoming an adult. The vessel slowly descended into the underwater city, passing through layers of heavily destroyed buildings. As the vessel descended, Taeho's two comrades became more pensive, both weighed down by worries, but not daring to utter a word, just sitting there silently. Jaco's expression was a bit gloomy, his mind constantly calculating. Each person had their own private concerns. Feeling the air in the vessel was suffocatingly tense, Sonya looked for some entertainment, inching closer to Bota, poking his bicep with her finger, teasing, so hard. Have you been training? Sonya found his stiff expression adorable and couldn't help but be amused. She leaned forward, resting her hand on Bota's thigh. Sonya's unconventional actions threw Bota's heart into turmoil. It's a bit tight in here, isn't it? Or should I sit on your lap? What the hell are you doing? SOS. He suddenly realized something in a panic, his expression changing, becoming distorted. All right? Or is it because I look so damn tasty? One of Taeho's two comrades looked puzzled. He turned to ask Jocko, "Hey Jocko, why does an outsider like you want to help us so much?" Jocko heard the question, a little stunned. He closed his eyes, sinking into memory. I have a daughter. The image of the past suddenly appeared in Jocko's mind, his small, fragile daughter in his arms. Red rashes spread all over her body, even on her face. She died of the water plague 6 years ago. Bota froze. He seemed to have grasped the key point, the water plague. Taeho's two comrades were just as surprised. If we had medicine like what was in the relics yesterday, I could have stopped it from spreading so quickly. Bota carefully observed the man sitting next to him, while Jocko was still immersed in his painful past, continuing his story. We really need the relics left by our ancestors, so we can't destroy thee or mine like that. Lost in thought, the vessel suddenly stopped. Bota looked out in alarm to check the situation. The vessel had entered deep into a dilapidated reinforced concrete tunnel. It was pitch black all around, with only a faint light from the submarine's lamps. Gonta, sitting at the control panel, turned to announce, "The sub can only take us this far. Let's start diving, everyone." Everyone quickly put on their professional diving gear, armed to the teeth, carefully checking their equipment one last time before leaving the vessel. They left the vessel through the exit in the lower bay of the submarine. Jocko gathered everyone, warning them seriously, stick close if you don't want to die. Moving underwater was truly difficult due to the resistance. Inside his diving suit, Bota was so nervous he pressed his lips together tightly, reassuring himself, "Let's go." The flashlight beam illuminated a small, narrow space, enough for the team to find their way safely. Jocko led the way, giving instructions as they went, find the missing people, and confirm the existence of the sea monsters. That's the objective of this mission. The corridor was decayed, desolate, full of crumbling wall fragments, the window bars corroded by seawater, but this place was a paradise for fish. Let's move. The observer sat in front of the signal detector, constantly reporting to the nearby guild master. The search team has reached Area D7. The guild master's trusted subordinate leaned close to his ear, whispering plans, both of their faces exuding a dangerous air. What will happen if they find that area, sir? Nothing to worry about. The guild master's eyes were as cold as a viper watching its prey, his voice laced with malice. No one has ever left that place alive, so naturally, no one is left to tell what's there. The wreckage submerged at the bottom of the ocean, the buildings cracked, eroded by time, the corridor long and deep. An old washing machine was pierced by an iron bar. A terrible tragedy once happened here. The broken iron bar, which had been trying to break a piece of machinery, still lay there, interrupted. Someone approached, pulled out the iron bar, and examined it meticulously. This is his crowbar. The expedition team gathered around the old washing machine, shining their flashlights all over its surface, searching for clues. Something definitely happened here. Jocko quickly analyzed the situation and then laid out a plan, split into two teams, and searched the surroundings. Gonta and I will check the north. Sonya, quick as a flash, latched on a Bota like a koala bear. Happily forming a team with him, Sonya and Bota will check the west. Bota looked uncomfortable, pushing Sonya away a bit. "Give me a break, sis." "No." Taeho's comrade also spoke up. "I'll check around here for a bit. We'll move out later." They all split up to act. Jocko ordered, "Regroup here in 30 minutes. Understood. Sonya and Bota stuck close together, entering a pitch-black path. The lights on their heads were enough for them to see the ground beneath their feet. Both moved cautiously, weapons at the ready. Bota's face was drenched in sweat, his eyes fixed on the path. It's hard to see here. The long, wide path was enveloped in a creepy silence, surrounding Bota and Sonya. It felt like sea monsters could leap out of the darkness at any moment. Every step was fraught with danger. Bota's eyes burned with hatred, his eyebrows furrowed, a fire burning in his heart. "Show yourselves, and I'll chop you up like birds." Sonya spotted an interesting toy. She swam ahead, parallel to Bota, cool sword. "Is that an air blade? Where'd you get it?" Sonya reached out and grabbed the sword on Bota's back. Hanging from it were two stuffed bunnies, one blue and one purple, super cute, but looks a bit plain. "Want to add some light accessories?" Bota sensed something approaching and signaled for Sonya to be quiet. He focused intently, scanning the surroundings, a sense of unease rising within him. "Do you hear that?" Sonya didn't pay much attention, winking playfully. Bota got annoyed hearing that. "You mean my cute voice? Cut it out, lady." He stood still, his eyes glued to the deep darkness ahead. "Just listen." Sonya found it strange. She couldn't hear anything. Bota ignored Sonya, closing his eyes, sensing every small movement around him. "No, this thing." Bota sank into his thoughts, feeling the gentle currents of water, the tiny drops falling. Bota's eyes opened slightly, firm in his suspicion, definitely the sound of dripping water. Sonya was surprised. She didn't think so, feeling Bota was worrying over nothing. "Dripping? Are you imagining things? How can there be dripping sounds when you're underwater?" Bota shot forward, hastily shouting to Sonya. "This way, Bota." A heavily destroyed corridor. "It starts from here." Sonya hurried forward, quickly passing Bota. "What's here?" Bota shone his light, looking up at the ceiling. Bota was deeply shocked by the sight above. The water's surface was just a short distance from them. Bota couldn't help but be amazed, shouting, "The surface!" The water droplets continued to fall, drip, drip, disturbing the calm water surface. Bota and Sonya surfaced from the water together. Both gradually made their way to the shore, walking along the rocky beach. Nearby, water dripped continuously onto the sea surface. Bota and Sonya stood back to back, warily observing their surroundings. "You hear it now, right? What is it?" Bota laughed and took off his helmet, revealing a wary face, listening intently. Sonya also removed her heavy helmet. Surprised, "We can breathe down here." Looking up to survey the terrain, Bota's eyes widened in astonishment. A magnificent, towering palace, though ravaged, still had its dome intact, obscuring the sky. Sonya couldn't help but exclaim, "There are areas like this underwater?" Feeling his foot step on something, Bota got goosebumps. A human skull lay right at his feet, and where he had just stepped was another human skull, no longer intact. His confusion turned to horror. Bota's pupils constricted. He stammered, "This is..." Putting things together, Bota instinctively turned to look at Sonya, his expression even more shocked. Under the light of their flashlights, a pit full of human bones was revealed, piled up like a mountain, filling the deep hole. Looking at the pile of human bones, one could guess this was the grave of an entire army. Bota couldn't believe his eyes. Sonya was also utterly bewildered, a terrifying fear rising in both of them. Human skulls? What the hell is this place? A dangerous, murderous aura rushed from behind. Both of them whipped around and froze on the spot. A dark figure was stepping on the pit of human bones, slowly approaching. Sonya raised her gun as a warning. Sonya gritted her teeth, tightening her grip on her sword. Both got into a ready-to-fight stance. Bota's face showed clear annoyance. He knew full well that the approaching figure was definitely an enemy. The murderous aura from before had come from him. A hidden corner of the diving helmet appeared, the crack on the glass looking very familiar. It was the killer diver who had attacked Tae-ho and Mori. The murderous diver continued to approach slowly, completely unfazed by Sonya's threat. Sonya and Bota slowly backed closer to each other, their eyes never leaving the stranger's every move. Bota exclaimed in astonishment, "There's a survivor?" After walking a short distance, he suddenly collapsed. Seeing this, Bota's compassion stirred, and he asked in alarm, "Are you okay?" Over the radio, Sonya reported the situation to Jocko. "Jocko, we found a survivor here." "Roger that. We're on our way." Sonya and Bota on either side, helping the diver. "We need to give him the first aid kit." Suddenly, the man's hand shot up, making Bota look back curiously. That hand, quick as a flash, shot straight for his face. Bota was lifted into the air by the mysterious diver. He quickly resisted, struggling with all his might. Sonya reflexively retreated to a safe distance, getting into an attack stance. Bota roared in anger. "What the hell?" Sonya finally processed the situation and reacted quickly. Bota was slammed hard by the diver onto the floor full of human bones, sending skulls flying everywhere. He picked up Bota's sword and slowly advanced towards him. He swung the sword, intending to attack Bota. Bota, still reeling from the heavy blow, was frozen on the spot. Just as the sword came down, his survival instincts kicked in, and he rolled to the side, dodging a fatal blow. Bota roared furiously, "What are you doing? Stop!" Sonya became even more enraged, cursing, "Piss off!" Just as the mysterious diver swung the sword to attack Bota again, Sonya appeared from behind, delivering a powerful blow to the diver. One of Sonya's sword strikes cleanly split the murderous diver in two, sending blood flying. The upper half of the diver's body was sent flying, rolling onto the white bone floor. His legs buckled, blood spraying like rain from his lower half, before the astonished eyes of Bota, who had narrowly escaped death. His face contorted. He couldn't help but be bewildered, huh? Sonya roared in indignation. This is the bastard who killed his comrades. Blood flowed down her arm, dripping onto the ground. From the diver's lower half, something horrifying suddenly emerged. It seemed to be sucking his blood, growing as fast as a weed. The monstrous mass swelled, growing to twice the height of a person. Sonya's face turned pale with fear as it extended its long tentacles towards her. Sonya was surrounded by the monster's tentacles, which quickly closed in. Sonya was gripped tightly by the tentacles, pulled closer to the monster's mouth. Bota shouted her name in alarm. Sonya. The monster's mouth opened wide, revealing sharp teeth, a dental structure identical to that of a sea devil. Sonya screamed in terror, her face pale. Sonya's limbs were bound tightly. Despite struggling with all her might, the tentacles only tightened their grip. She was slowly pulled closer to its mouth. Bota quickly picked up his sword, rushed forward, and delivered a decisive slash right near the monster's mouth. Blood sprayed from the wound like rain. Bota's face became fierce, glaring at the monster with rage. The monster, wounded, let its tentacles holding Sonya go slack, causing her to fall in a heap on the floor of bones. Bota stood in front of Sonya, protecting her, his hand gripping the sword tightly. The injured monster retreated a few steps. It growled a few times, then charged again. Bota shouted in fear, "It's coming again." Its mouth gaped open as if to swallow everything. Gripping the sword tightly, Bota forcefully pushed the directional lever backward. The switch flipped, and the blade was launched forward with immense force, stabbing straight into the monster's belly. The inertia sent it flying backward. It was thrown back, slamming hard against the wall, the blade also embedding itself deep into the wall, piercing through the other side. The monster was left dangling on the wall. It struggled to break free, but in vain, pinned firmly there. Bota finally relaxed a bit, panting heavily. Sonya had also just been through a life-or-death experience. Lucky to have escaped, she tried to breathe evenly to regain her composure. Only when they saw the monster was no longer moving did they cautiously approach. Still not over the shock. What is that thing? A half-human, half-insect beast, with tentacles on its head, was pierced through its weak point by the sword, pinned firmly to the wall. Is that a sea monster? The more he looked, the more familiar it seemed. Bota suddenly remembered something, his eyes revealing doubt and disbelief. The upper half of this beast, it's identical, this thing. The image of the beast that appeared on the shore of the floating island flashed in Bota's mind, exactly like the thing that had washed ashore. That beast had been stabbed to death by the guild master himself with an arrow. Wait a minute, the guild master. He recalled the gentle expression on the guild master's blood-covered face and his reassuring words. There's no such thing as a sea monster here, Bota. No matter how dense Bota was, he realized the problem, cursing silently in his mind. Could it be a trick? Bota was stunned, completely unwilling to believe that crazy suspicion was true. What the hell is going on? Before a deep blue sea was a bustling town, at a small fish restaurant tucked away at the end of an alley. A plate of fragrant, steaming grilled fish was placed on the table. Lita skipped out from the kitchen, a beer in one hand, fish in the other, cheerfully announcing, "The grilled fish is ready." 2 glasses of water and the plate of fish were arranged neatly on the customer's table. The little girl, gentle and polite, said, "Please enjoy, everyone." The men, receiving the invitation, looked delighted. "Thank you, Lita." The innocent girl smiled, her face as bright as a flower, saying, "Let me know if you need anything." The 2 men were completely smitten by her cuteness. Yes, absolutely, dear." Watching Lita's figure as she turned away, 3 men huddled together, chin in hand, gossiping. "So pretty." No, I mean you're very pretty, dear. You're becoming more and more like a young lady." An old man, his face red from alcohol, looked at the little girl and wondered, how long has it been since she came here? For years. Watching the small figure bustling back and forth, a voice full of emotion was heard. "Ever since Lita came here, this place feels like it's changed." In the kitchen, a sharp blade came down, neatly dispatching a pair of fish heads. Kana, her face as cold as ice, swiftly chopped the fish into many pieces. Behind her, the veteran chefs witnessing her knife skills couldn't help but exclaim in amazement, "Wow." Another chef was even more expressive, his eyes wide, his mouth agape in astonishment. "I've been handling knives for 20 years, but watching that girl's knife work makes me feel like a complete amateur." Her innocent, round eyes looked at the plate of thinly sliced fish. Mission report complete. The head chef looked at the dish she had just brought, asking in surprise, what did you do to the fish, Kana? She remained calm, holding up the knife and replying, I chopped it. This bold answer left the owner stunned, as the paper-thin slices of fish fluttered in the wind. Finally, he helplessly took the knife and reassigned the tasks. Let me fillet it. You two cook it, okay? The girl, without hesitation, nodded in agreement, all right. The owner took the knife, and while preparing the dish, he sighed wearily. I hired her for her knife skills, but she's not much of a cook. I hope she'll improve over time. The fish was neatly clamped in the grilling rack. It seemed like everything was fine, but as soon as the owner turned away, the fire flared up violently, so large that his eyes widened. He rushed back to see her calmly looking at the burnt black fish in the rack. She asked nonchalantly, fish is always better when it's well cooked, right? The owner looked like he was about to explode, yelling no. He rushed over, reminding her, don't burn it anymore, Kana. Suddenly, as he reached her, his whole body froze. From inside the house, a group of people heard the strange noise and peeked out the window to see what was happening. What was that sound? A pair of small hands was propped on the ground. Lita was sprawled on the floor, food and drinks scattered everywhere. The owner saw the scene and called out worriedly, Lita. Hearing his voice, Lita's eyes suddenly filled with tears. She looked up at him, her face full of guilt. I'm sorry. And so, a crowd of people, young and old, gathered around, anxiously asking, are you okay, Lita? Lita, are you all right? But the little girl just kept muttering, I'm really sorry, sir. An angry person slammed his glass on the table, shouting, hey, owner, it's you. He looked at his dirty shoes, his face scowling. Your hired girl got my shoes dirty. You asked angrily, what are you going to do about it? Mao looked at the young man's appearance, curious. Who's that guy? The person next to him eagerly introduced, that's the new guy who arrived yesterday. He keeps bragging about how he used to be a captain. From behind, a curse was suddenly heard. This guy's disrespectful. While Lita and the owner were profusely apologizing, I'm sorry, sir. Kana, her face cold, stepped in front of the teary-eyed Lita. Unexpectedly, Kana took a clean cloth and said politely, I'm very sorry, sir. I'll clean it up right away. The little girl behind her heard this and called out in surprise, Kana. She took the cloth and gently wiped the dirt off Yu's shoe. Yu acted superior, looking down at her. His eyes were improper, glued to her full chest. He glanced for a moment, then gave a sly smile. Yu lifted her chin, looking pleased, that's more like it. Then he suddenly hugged her, a beer mug in his hand, and declared loudly, who cares about a glance? Let's drink, baby. He held her tightly, his face full of meaning, whispering in her ear, I'll let it slide. It's fine, let's drink. It seemed Kana had reached her limit. Her eyes shot sparks, brimming with killing intent. The owner stood to one side, trying to mediate, his voice trembling as he advised, Sir, you shouldn't do that. Lita was also trembling with fear, but she was worried for you. Kana will skewer that uncle if he doesn't stop. A pair of hands slammed down on the table. Mao appeared like a superhero, his spirit blazing, his will boiling. He shot up to remind you. Let her go, buddy. His face contorted. He pointed at you, gritting his teeth and asking, do you know whose person you're putting your hands on? Hearing that, the other guy got even more furious, asking back, what? Mao was also itching for a fight, his teeth grinding, his eyes glaring at the guy. Hey you, let me teach you a few lessons. The guy slowly pushed himself up, then suddenly stood straight, startling Mao. He stood straight, completely overpowering Mao in terms of physique, his face darkening as he cursed, you little punk. He smirked, cracking his knuckles, asking evenly, is your family ready for your funeral? Kana stood to one side, silently glancing at Yu's fist. From behind, a crowd cheered Mao on. There's a fight. Go for it. Beat him up, which made Mao's face turn purple with fear. Suddenly Mao's hand clenched, thinking Kana. He gritted his teeth, his voice fierce. Kana is always under my protection. You saw him charge and laugh heartily, come on. A pair of slender hands gently picked up a bright red fork. Just as he was about to attack Mao, Kana coldly stabbed the fork into the guy's waist. The guy was astonished, his eyes wide. Because of a moment's carelessness, Yu took the full force of Mao's punch to his face. Blood sprayed from his nose, his eyes flashing with a cold light. Quick as a flash, preparing to give Mao another blow, a pair of small, delicate shoes moved as fast as the wind. Before the guy could strike, Kana was faster, running up and tripping him, causing him to lose his balance and fall backward. His head unfortunately hit an iron table, leaving him dazed and seeing stars. The girl, her face cold as stone, looked at the guy with eyes as sharp as a knife. The guy was now sprawled on the ground, foaming at the mouth, passed out. In the middle of the diner, Yu with his muscular body lay flat on the floor. Everyone around witnessed the scene, first astonished, then bewilderedly asking each other, did the fight even start? Mao looked at his hand, where a golden light had just flashed, unable to hide his surprise. Finally, after a moment of being stunned, the crowd in the diner gathered around Mao. cheering joyfully, "Awesome, Mao. Just like One Punch Man. You're so tough. That was great, man." Seeing everyone praise him, Mao became smug, putting his hands on his hips and grinning, so wide his face turned red. He appeared quite confident, getting into a fighting stance. "Looking heroic, I know I'm badass. That's how I was taught." He continued to admire himself, looking up at the sky. "Don't worry, Kana. I'll always have you covered." After flexing for a while, he turned back in surprise and asked Kana. Seeing he was conscious, the owner looked at him like a comedian and reminded him she left a long time ago. After hearing that, Mao's face froze. On a distant shore, Lita and Jenna sat quietly, gazing towards the horizon. The little girl hugged her knees, her heart full of guilt, her head bowed. "I'm sorry, Kana. I was just so worried about Bota." She looked silently at Lita's small, huddled form. A pair of slender hands gently stroked the little girl's head. Her eyes were full of faith as she smiled comfortingly. "He'll be fine, Lita." Hearing that, the little girl was still a bit doubtful. She lifted her tear-stained face and asked shakily, "Really?" Her eyes looked at the little girl gently, smiling. Recalling the time Bota trained tirelessly without rest, she recounted, "Bota has been training constantly all this time." Then she pictured him seriously surfing in the fierce open sea. Continuing, "He hasn't missed a single day of training." Remembering the moment she was cold to him, she continued, "Anyway, I told him to stop being a chicken." She turned her face away slightly, but her eyes were still as bright as stars. "But more than anyone, I know for sure." Continuing to imagine his majestic figure, she affirmed with certainty, "Bota is a genius." Then she imagined him and his teammates raiding a monster's nest. Her cold, decisive eyes gazed into the distance, concluding, "Better than anyone." Suddenly his face tensed, his eyes wide. Looking up, his weapon was lodged firmly in the monster. Only then did Bota smile. He clenched his fist, praising himself, "I got it." His eyes widened. Looking at the monster, he thought with contempt, "Cheap tricks." Remembering his life-or-death battle with her, he mused, "At least my training time wasn't wasted." Looking at the horrifying, disgusting monsters before him, he told himself, "I can do this." A sharp glint appeared in his eyes. He smiled faintly, affirming to himself, "Hunt them now." Yoka shone his light on a strange creature sitting with its back to the wall. A team member frowned and asked, "What kind of monster is this?" Yoka picked up a brownish-black human skull. "Are all these skulls it's doing?" Going to use a dagger to lift one of the creature's tentacles. "It can't be human. What the hell is this?" Then he suddenly turned to Bota. "Hey kid, did you take care of it?" Gonta stood facing Bota, his voice a warning. "You'll regret it if you lie." He raised his voice and asked back, "What?" Sonia snapped angrily at Gong. "Shut up, the kid saved my life." Yoka immediately whipped around to ask Sonia, "Sonia, was this the only one?" Sonia pointed ahead. "I don't know, it came from over there." Yoka shone his light in the direction Sonia was pointing. Then Yoka shone his flashlight on a long, cylindrical object. "Looks like a water pipe." The whole group fixed their eyes on the dark, damp tunnel. "I guess it came from in there." Yoka cautiously ordered the team, "Let's go check it out." The splashing of water echoed with every step the group took into the tunnel, their shadows cast on the cave walls. Each person held a flashlight, lighting the way deep into the end of the tunnel. Yoka marveled, "This is amazing. I can't believe there's a whole system like this underwater." Gon was curious, "What is this place?" Yoka frowned decisively. There must be a reason for this. Then his eyes widened, and he swallowed hard. Bota looked at the pitch-black, deep cavern and thought to himself, "It's huge. Where does this lead?" While Bota was lost in thought, a tentacle suddenly and silently emerged from the water surface. Bota sensed danger, his eyes widening. He quickly turned, shining his light towards the source of the sound. But when he shone his light there, he only saw an empty, illuminated space. "That's strange." Bota didn't dare to let his guard down, frowning tensely and asking, "Is something there?" Suddenly, a team member shouted, "Look at this!" They shone their lights on jumbled crates floating on the water surface. They seemed to be quite large relics. Someone cheered joyfully. "There are so many of them." Yoka immediately raised a hand to his lips, signaling for silence. "Don't get too excited. Check again." The long-haired teammate swept his hair back and approached the crates to inspect them. It turns out their lids have all been pried open. Gong, on the other side, was checking another crate and announced that it was empty. Another team member went ahead, calling back excitedly as he shone his light. "Come here. This is unbelievable." Sonia and Yoka both looked up at the cave ceiling. Sonia cheered with delight. "We hit the jackpot." Yoka's jaw dropped in astonishment. "No way." Before them were countless crates stacked on top of each other, several feet high. The whole group was excited as if they had just found a treasure trove. "Are all the relics here?" One team member's eyes lit up, and he said humorously, "They're all brand new." Min, with a haggard face, was out of breath. "I get it. This is the shelter our ancestors made to prepare for the disaster." Looking at the mountain of goods, he speculated, "But then they all left, and what they left behind is all of this." looking at the map on the wall. He continued his train of thought. This shelter has been here all this time. He looked up and stated with certainty, all the relics we've found came from here. Hearing that, the whole team's eyes lit up. They hugged the items and cheered with joy. We're rich. Only Bota seemed to sense something was wrong, his whole body stiffening. His eyes quickly scanned the surroundings. When he looked up at the cave ceiling, he was completely frozen. On the ceiling, countless sea monsters were clinging, lying in wait for the prey below. Observing more closely, Bota noticed that some spots on the sea monsters' faces were starting to crack, looking incredibly gruesome. He was worried, scared, his eyes wide as he warned, "Get away from there and gear up." The other team members heard this and looked at him doubtfully with an expression like, "What's with this guy today?" until they all looked up. All of them were utterly astonished. They looked up at the cave ceiling, which was completely covered with countless sea monsters, looking like a horrifying carpet. The group could see hundreds of them at a glance. And maybe not just hundreds, maybe even thousands. The cave ceiling was thick with sea monsters, swarming to a terrifying degree. The sea monsters just hung there, dangling from the ceiling, a truly horrifying sight. They were lumpy, crowded, pressing against each other. Some were even stuck fast to the walls, looking like a grotesque, abstract painting. Below, two team members saw this scene, and their faces turned pale, turning purple. One person looked up, trembling, and asked, "The divers, are they the ones who went missing?" Bota replied numbly, "I have seen this before." He then recounted the feeling from his youth. When he was submerged in the water, it was just like that. After observing for a moment, he was certain this is their nest. Sonia turned and asked him, "A nest?" Hearing this, the other two members of the group grew even more terrified, shouting, "So it is sea monster?" Jocko observed for a moment, then spoke up to remind them, "Calm down, everyone, look." The slimy mass on the cave ceiling shows no sign of wanting to attack. Jocko reassured them, they're still hibernating. Ioka immediately ordered the team, "Let's get out of here as soon as possible." One team member was so scared he needed a staff just to walk. Suddenly, a piercing, headache-inducing sound of metal clashing rang out. The strange creatures on the cave ceiling slowly detached, raining down. Bota was startled by the strange noise, and the whole team, realizing something was wrong, looked up at the cave ceiling together. The soldier quickly reminded the person next to him not to make too much noise. The other person, with a solemn face, nodded. "All right." The leader ordered, "Let's go." Those behind them walked on, using their lights to illuminate the path underwater. Bota looked around suspiciously, certain that something had happened here. He looked up and saw countless corpses strewn about, thinking to himself, does no one know about this? Or has everyone who's ever been here died? Suddenly, from a distance, it seemed something was swimming towards them. Without a word, the whole team immediately drew their guns, aiming at it and firing relentlessly. The thing appeared with a leg that looked exactly like a human's. Looking grotesque, its upper body was a mass of disgusting tentacles, and on its head, it was carrying some kind of barrel. When Bota saw its shape, he couldn't help but be surprised, his face slack-jawed. The pants it was wearing slowly ripped apart, unable to bear its weight. Truly a crappy pair of pants in the most literal sense. While everyone was shining their lights on it, it didn't bother to attack and just quietly walked away. Then it slipped into a sewer pipe. Bota broke out in a cold sweat. What was that thing? The person behind him trembled with fear. "It's a monster. We're dead for sure." The person next to him quickly reassured him, "Calm down." Suddenly, he felt like he had just stepped on something. He started sweating, looked down, and immediately, a tentacle appeared from nowhere, wrapping tightly around him. This was bad. He struggled violently, but just a few seconds later, a giant octopus monster lifted him into the air. Everyone who witnessed the scene gasped in astonishment, while he screamed in terror, his piercing cry echoing. Not letting him struggle for long, the monster snatched him, put him in its mouth, and began to chew ravenously. Fresh blood immediately spurted out, staining its entire mouth red. It chewed and chewed, savoring its freshly caught prey. Bota and the old man standing beside him watched the scene, speechless, only able to curse silently. That damn monster. When it had finished digesting the man, its mouth opened wide again, looking terrifying. Someone wondered, did it wake up? Damn it. Suddenly, the monster lunged, rushing towards everyone like a whirlwind. The team was on high alert, immediately opening fire. Here it comes. The spears flew, embedding themselves in its body, but it seemed to feel no pain at all, and those attacks couldn't stop it. Someone standing behind Bota swung a baseball bat, striking the creature squarely. The mighty blow hit the monster right in the mouth, sending it flying. It turned out to be Gong. The monster, having been hit, let out a pained roar. As it struggled and cried out, its comrades above immediately responded to its call. They shrieked noisily. Gong shouted, "They're waking up." Jocko quickly ordered retreat. Before everyone could react, the monsters above all dropped into the water at once like a rain of monsters. They fell, crashing into the people below, knocking them over. Water splashed into Bota's face. He looked at them with eyes full of anger, as if to say, these things have met their match today. The fallen comrades were slowly helped up. Another monster rushed forward to attack a soldier. Bota watched the scene before him, grinding his teeth. Looking at the surrounding monsters, he thought to himself, I'm not the kid I used to be. Then he grabbed his blade, ready to fight. He gritted his teeth, growling, come on, I'll chop you to pieces. The slimy, slithering monsters in the water were approaching them, their numbers growing. Bota's group was surrounded by them, with no way out. They stood there, growling, looking ferocious. Seeing this, Bota's group was on edge, knowing that the slightest mistake could mean instant death. Jocko was terrified, his body trembling uncontrollably, his teeth chattering. So many, they're coming from all directions. Gong's face was impassive, without a trace of fear. He frowned and shouted, Sonia, cover the rear. Sonia, standing behind him, shouted back, Roger. With that, he held his weapon firmly, glaring at the monsters, looking incredibly cool. She also tightened her grip on her sword, frowning, trying to find their weakness. Seeing that Bota's side wasn't making a move, the monsters charged all at once, like a disturbed beehive. Seeing this, Sonia's fighting spirit surged. She quickly warned, here they come. Gong held his mace, raised it high, and shouted. Without hesitation, he smashed it straight onto the head of a monster in front of him. The mace hit its head, and fresh blood splattered everywhere, a horrifying sight. The two men on the other side were not idle either, continuously firing their guns at the monsters, bullets flying like rain. A monster opened its mouth full of sharp teeth, but its tentacles were pierced by arrows, causing it to scream in pain. Another monster whipped its tentacle straight at Sonia. She quickly and skillfully parried the blow with her sword. Then, with another slash, she flung the tentacle away and sliced across the monster's abdomen, cutting it in two with a clean stroke. Gong shouted with fierce eyes, but suddenly he stopped in bewilderment, his eyes wide, not understanding what was happening. It turned out the monster's tentacle had gripped Gong's weapon tightly, and in a flash, the tentacle wrapped around his body, squeezing so tightly it made it hard for him to breathe, his face turning pale, a pathetic sight. Gong's limbs were completely restrained by the tentacle. Bota's group could only watch helplessly as he was held fast, unable to do anything. The monster showed no mercy, directly putting Gong's entire body into its mouth. Fresh blood splattered, a horrifying scene. Sonia screamed in fear. Gong. His head was being crushed by the monster's mouth, full of sharp teeth, the pain so intense he couldn't help but groan. Just as it seemed he was about to die, suddenly, a sword flew from nowhere, piercing through the monster's mouth, a last-second rescue. Right before his eyes, the sword flipped, slicing off all the monster's fangs, looking incredibly formidable. The one who had just acted was none other than Bota. He gritted his teeth, using all his strength to cut the monster apart and rescue his comrade. Gong's entire body immediately fell into a pool of water mixed with the monster's fresh blood, a chaotic scene. Sonia stared blankly at Bota's action, her mouth agape in astonishment, unable to believe her eyes. Jaco's two companions also stared wide-eyed. Unable to believe it, they uttered, Bota. Bota stood still, his sword held high, in a heroic posture. Then he delivered a powerful slash, splitting the monster in two, looking decisive. The water splashed towards the others, while Bota's feet continued to advance, without a hint of hesitation. Just like that, with every slash of Bota's sword, the monsters were cleanly killed, none survived. Underwater, the smaller monsters lay everywhere, some with severed tentacles, others split in two. Bota bent down, his eyes quickly glancing at the monster standing near him, looking ice cold. With a graceful spin, Bota sliced the monster into two pieces, finishing it off quickly. She stared wide-eyed, her mouth agape in admiration. Damn. Jocko was no exception. Fucking awesome. Min cheered with joy. Good, very good, Bota. Bota, his face covered in blood, gritted his teeth, his eyes still staring coldly, not flinching at all. While dazed, suddenly, a tentacle whipped straight at Bota from nowhere, startling him. He quickly dodged to the side, narrowly escaping. A look of contempt was now clear in Bota's eyes. You slowpokes. He suddenly thought of Kana. Compared to Kana, Bota had once dueled with her. She possessed extraordinary strength, always overwhelming Bota. But these things, they were both stupid and slow, complete amateurs. The monster, enraged that its kin was dispatched right in front of it, opened its hideous mouth wide and let out a roar. Bota held his sword and charged straight ahead. Seeing the monsters with their mouths open, ready to devour him, he cursed silently, You damn monsters. Another monster stared with wide eyes, just waiting for Bota to serve himself up. He sneered, You think humans are just food? Then the monster's teeth crushed a nearby boat, looking ferocious. Bota didn't hesitate, quickly charging forward, rushing into the enemy's encirclement. They looked up, seeing Bota hovering in the air, their faces full of surprise. As he got close to the monsters, Bota suddenly leaped up from the ground. Right before their bewildered eyes, a completely unexpected performance. Bota's eyes hardened, a spark of hatred flashing in his mind. I'll tear you all apart, one by one. As the thought finished, Bota dove down like a whirlwind, using his sword to slash powerfully at the two monsters standing near him, splitting them in two. Blood and water mixed together, a horrifying scene. Bota's sword continued to slash relentlessly. One after another, all of them were split in two, none escaped. The monsters were caught off guard, unable to react before being swiftly and neatly cleared out by Bota. Bota's sword, with just a single path, had dealt with all of them, right before everyone's astonished eyes. Bota gritted his teeth, slashing powerfully at the last monster, finishing it off decisively. Jaco's two companions gaped, watching the corpses slowly fall before their eyes, speechless. Gong stared wide-eyed, unable to believe the scene before him. How could a kid like that do this? The monsters' corpses were cut into pieces, blood mixing with the water, creating a ghastly red color. Their tentacles no longer moved at all. Bota held his sword, cutting off all the remaining tentacles. He alone had neatly dealt with all the monsters they had been struggling with. Then Bota spun his sword and plunged it straight into the ground, looking majestic. His eyes were cold, his face covered in blood, staring at the monsters' corpses, emotionless. Their corpses, piece by piece, were scattered everywhere, a desolate scene. A monster's thigh was still twitching, but just a moment later, blood gushed out from the thigh like water, and then it too became still, its tragic fate sealed. Sonya exclaimed in amazement. It's like his flash has no cooldown. Gong lowered his head, cold sweat breaking out, wondering, who is this kid? He stared at Bota, assessing him. Only top-tier spearmen can use sword energy that well. Jocko walked over, clapped Bota on the shoulder, and praised. That was fucking incredible, Bota. How could you? Then, he turned his head to the side, looking at the sewer drain, his expression thoughtful. Then, Jocko assessed. The escape route is completely clear. They both gave a thumbs up, expressing their admiration. Amazing, Bota. Let's get out of here while we still can. After saying that, they all hurried away, not daring to linger for another second. And so, everyone held their flashlights, slowly moving forward, surrounded by the corpses of the monsters, a gruesome scene. Suddenly, as they were walking, the entire cave began to shake violently. The group, confused, looked up, not knowing what was happening. Sonya muttered to herself, an earthquake? Then suddenly, the wall beside them exploded, creating a large hole. Tentacles snaked out from it, looking terrifying. These tentacles were much longer than the previous ones. They writhed ceaselessly, looking incredibly frightening, like giant snakes. The group, with disbelieving eyes and cold sweat breaking out, watched as the monster slowly emerged from the wall, a horrifying sight. The monster used the force of its tentacles to slowly pull itself out, looking slow but powerful. A giant monster, with its mouth wide open, full of sharp teeth, looked absolutely ghastly. Its tongue lolled out, saliva dripping down, looking filthy. This monster had 3 mouths. Its eyes looked down from above, staring at them, full of killing intent. Jocko realized with horror, Jin, one of the 7 ocean devils, a terrifying legend. Jocko looked at the monster, a creature thought to exist only in legends, now present right before their eyes. Bota also looked at the monster, thinking Jin, one of the 7 great sea monsters, a fearsome power. The monster swung its tail, smashing it down towards where everyone was standing, a powerful attack. It wrapped its tentacle around a nearby pillar. Bota and Sonya were surprised by its strange action. The monster slammed its chest down where everyone was standing, creating a powerful shockwave. Water splashed everywhere, sending everyone flying. A large hole suddenly appeared on the ship's hull, looking extremely dangerous. Someone shouted, "Water is flooding in. Put on your helmets." Just as they finished putting on their helmets, water immediately flooded in, submerging everything. It knocked everyone far away. Sonya suddenly let out a piercing scream. A large crate was floating towards her, looking very dangerous. The large crate slammed hard into Sonya, then pinned her underneath, making her unable to move. Sonya's oxygen tank also came loose. She quickly reached for the oxygen tank, stammering, "No, my oxygen tank." Suddenly, someone grabbed her hand, pulling her out of the dangerous situation. That person was Bota, who had managed to grab onto a nearby crate. Sonya cried out joyfully, "Bota!" The monster was preparing to approach, its dangerous eye quickly glancing towards the two of them, full of killing intent. Sonya shouted, "Behind you!" Behind you. Bota also quickly shouted, "Stay close to me." The monster was rushing to attack them, like a hungry wild beast. A powerful blast of air suddenly erupted from Bota's weapon, pushing the monster back. They quickly jumped from where they were holding on. The monster only managed to attack the nearby crates, a lucky escape. The monster roared in anger. Then it immediately chased after the two of them, refusing to let go. Its tentacle reached out, about to grab Sonia's leg. The situation was extremely critical. She quickly drew her gun, firing continuously at the monster, trying to hold it off. Sonia's action made the monster pause for a moment, creating an opportunity for them to get ahead and escape its grasp. It growled, then resumed its attack, moving quickly towards them, determined to eliminate its prey. Sonia urged Bota, "It's right behind us. Faster. The pipe is right there. Just a little more." Suddenly, something strange appeared on the monster's tentacle, looking mysterious. Then it spat that thing at them. The strange green substance hit their oxygen tank, causing it to explode. Sonia was surprised. "What is this?" She cried out in alarm. "It's corrosive." A large explosion occurred. They had luckily gotten close to the escape pipe. Bota struggled, tried to move towards the pipe. Finally, they succeeded in getting inside, temporarily safe. The monster did not retreat, but instead went straight into the pipe, chasing after them, determined not to let its prey escape. But luckily, the two of them managed to get into the sewer drain in time. Seeing the tentacles writhing behind them, they both breathed a sigh of relief, a narrow escape from death. Both of their faces were pale, their nerves still on edge, as tense as a bowstring. The two of them slowly backed away, watching the tentacles trying to reach in, a terrifying sight. Bota frowned, exclaiming, "We did it, we escaped." Sonia, drenched in sweat, said, "I've never seen one of the 7 great sea monsters. It was terrifying." Then, she turned and said, "It must have come from somewhere." Bota nodded, explaining, "It was just chasing us away to protect its eggs." Bota's eyes suddenly drooped. "I once saw a sea monster appear at a certain time to protect its egg sacs." Hearing this, Sonia was skeptical. "They come out of the water? Impossible." Bota quickly looked behind him, reminding her, "Talk less, save oxygen." Sonia gave a wry smile. "I lost my oxygen tank anyway." Although Sonia's eyes were sad, she still asked worriedly, "Can we survive with the oxygen left in our helmets?" Bota comforted her. "There should be some air somewhere at the end of the pipe. Don't be too scared. We're almost there." Sonia began to feel short of breath, her face flushing. Bota frowned at her expression, saying nothing, but his heart was full of worry. Bota thought to himself, "We're so close, hang in there." Then the two of them started swimming forward, trying their best. After swimming for a while, they both began to find it hard to breathe, gasping for air continuously. Bota stopped, staring ahead. In front of them was a corpse floating in the water, a gruesome sight. The corpse was blackened, making it impossible to see the person's face, only that it was a corpse. The two of them shone their flashlights on the corpse, then slowly approached, their hearts pounding. Bota gritted his teeth, his eyes filled with disbelief. Hey, the person in front of them was Jocko. He was barely breathing, his breath weak. When Sonia saw it was Jocko, she couldn't hold back her tears, screaming, "Jocko! Jocko!" Seeing Sonia wanting to pull Jocko along, Bota quickly held her back, then pulled her past the corpse. "There's no time. Sonia, it's too late." Bota bit his lip. This is bad. Sonia was hesitating, her eyes not leaving Jocko. Her consciousness began to fade, her mouth murmuring, "Jocko, Jocko." Then she slowly passed out. Bota cried out worriedly, "Sonia, Sonia." Bota quickly moved forward, holding Sonia. "Sonia, hang on." He tried to shake Sonia to wake her up. "Sonia, Sonia." Inside the drain pipe, there was now an extremely strong current, sweeping everything away. Outside the drain pipe was a scene of ruin and desolation, as if it had just gone through a great flood. Outside, a person was lying there, barely breathing, his breath weak. It was Gong. He lay there, gasping for breath, his breathing shallow. Gong was covered in blood, a pathetic sight. He tried to lift his arm, but had no strength left. "No, I can't move it, my ribs." Gong looked around with tears in his eyes. "Where am I?" Then his eyes slowly drooped in despair. Then he glanced to the side, at a pillar with an old nameplate. Gong's eyes fell on the large letters on the stone pillar, which looked familiar. The large letters at the top said shelter, and below it, in smaller letters, was residential district. Gong thought, "Are there people here? Where's this place?" He remembered being swept away by the whirlpool. It had pushed him to some strange place. In his heart, Gong could only pray that the other three were okay. "Jocko, I hope everyone is still safe." Sonia slowly sank into a haze, her eyes gradually closing. She felt she could no longer breathe. "I'm losing my mind." Then, She only heard Bota's shout, "Sonia, hang on, it's over." Sonia's body gradually felt like it was sinking. How deep is it? Sonia was slowly losing consciousness. This is bad. She felt it was hard to breathe. Breathe, how to breathe. Suddenly, Sonia's eyes slowly widened. I'm alive. She opened her eyes, only to see Bota kissing her on the lips, a surprise kiss. Their lips parted, and the air became awkward. Then, Bota continued to place his lips on Sonia's. She dazedly realized, Bota. The two began to kiss to get oxygen, a reluctant way of transferring air. Then Bota moved his lips from Sonia's, ending the kiss. Just like that, they repeated the action to get enough oxygen for Sonia, a difficult situation. Sonia gradually regained consciousness, her eyes wide open as she looked at Bota, her expression full of surprise. She stared blankly at Bota's helmet. It was no longer on his head. He doesn't have an oxygen tank? At this point, Sonia was completely bewildered. How? Elsewhere, birds were flying freely in the clear blue sky. This was a large fishing port, but it had an old, ancient beauty. In a small eatery called Fish, a closer look would show the sign was somewhat old, weathered by time. Inside, the tables and chairs, though old, were arranged very neatly. A plate of hot fish was brought to the table. Eat up and be happy, Lita. The two sat there, staring at each other blankly. I'm sorry, boss. I won't be like that again. The owner smiled gently, shaking his head. Don't worry. It's all in the past. It's not all your fault, Lita. Lita looked at the plate of food on the table, her eyes lighting up. It looks so delicious. Kana also took a piece of fish, put it in her mouth, and nodded repeatedly in approval. He smiled. It really is. It's my best dish. Then he became a little pensive, remarking, my son really liked grilled fish. Then his eyes drooped sadly, but then he went missing while mining. The boy was a really good person. Looking at the still hot plate of fish on the table. Whenever I make this dish, he glanced at the door. I always imagine that the boy will come back and walk through that door like he always used to. The door suddenly opened. The person who entered was his son, saying cheerfully, I'm home, Dad. But that was just a scene in his imagination of his son returning, and he would bring a plate of hot grilled fish over. The smell is wonderful. Is that your specialty, Dad? I'm starving. Lita ate while getting emotional, tears rolling down her cheeks. Sir, he smiled as if nothing had happened. Eat up and always smile, Lita. Let's enjoy the meal together. The little girl shed tears but then smiled happily. Yes, sir. Then Lita picked up the whole piece of fish and gnawed on it deliciously. The other two stared blankly at Lita, eating happily, the atmosphere becoming warm. The small eatery was filled with laughter, but elsewhere, in the abandoned city under the water, the scene was completely opposite. The corpses of the monsters lay scattered everywhere, a horrifying sight. In the sewer, air bubbles began to appear on the water's surface, signaling that something was about to happen. The two of them quickly surfaced, trying to breathe in the fresh air. Sonia looked at her hand, saying joyfully, we did it, we're alive. Bota looked around, observing the situation. There isn't much air left here. Sonia turned to call out, Bota. Sonia then asked the questions that had been building up inside her. How did you do that? Don't tell me you can breathe underwater too. Bota replied, I could just hold my breath underwater a little longer than normal people. Sonia was skeptical. What's the maximum time? Bota thought for a moment, then answered, probably around 40 minutes. Hearing this, Sonia was astonished. 40 minutes holding your breath? Are you Tom Cruise? Bota chuckled, who knows? Then his expression became serious. I realized I had that ability when I was trapped in a water pipe. Then Bota recounted the process of how he had practiced holding his breath underwater, a grueling process. At that time, he felt like he couldn't breathe anymore. Bota was losing consciousness. It was a terrible situation. But luckily, a hand grabbed him, pulling him from the Grim Reaper's scythe. Sonia exclaimed, or are you Aquaman or his son? Bota replied, let's talk later. We need to find a way out of here first. Sonia didn't give up. It'll take at least 20 minutes to get back to where we started diving. Bota turned and said, I'll share with you 2, maybe 3 times. Bota glanced into the distance and said, plus the remaining air in the helmet. It should be feasible. Let's try it, Sonia. Sonia frowned, thinking about something, then nodded okay. The two continued to take in air, preparing for their journey back into the water. Then they put on their helmets and quickly returned to the water, continuing their adventure. The two of them walked while using the flashlights on their heads to search, illuminating every nook and cranny. Then they both came to a small cave, looking mysterious. On the shore, an old boat was floating on the water, looking lonely. The man wearing a radio turned around to report, Sir, the ship has been submerged for over 3 hours. The chief asked with a grim face, so it's over? The subordinate standing beside him, with a serious face, asked, will the people worry if the search team disappears? He looked up, nodding, Possibly. Then, the chief stood up, clasped his hands behind his back, and looked into the distance. Wait, but if the sea monster slays those 6, it will be quiet for at least 6 months. He looked through the window, observing. 6 months is more than enough. Seeing everyone bustling about their work, people will forget about those creatures. The chief's eyes darkened. That's how things have always been. Cut to Bota's location. The two are gently swimming underwater, a peaceful scene. Suddenly, Bota stopped, looking behind him. He saw Sonia slowing down. It seemed she was having a problem. Bota asked doubtfully, "What's wrong?" "Your breathing is heavy." Sonia's face gradually turned purple. She gasped, "Bota, I need air." Bota turned around, placing his hands on Sonia's shoulders. "I'll help you. Take off your helmet." Then, Bota directly opened both of their helmets, without hesitation. Before he could do anything, Sonia's hands cupped Bota's cheeks, a surprising action. Then she quickly kissed Bota to get oxygen, a life-saving kiss. Bota was kissed until his cheeks flushed red, his eyes wide with utter surprise. Then, Bota also gradually sank into Sonia's kiss, the atmosphere becoming heated. Sonia's body pressed closer to Bota's, a very intimate feeling. Sonia's leg brushed against Bota, causing him to open his eyes wide in surprise, a strange sensation. Sonia kept rubbing her leg against Bota's lower body, making him a little flustered. After a moment, Sonia also moved her lips from Bota's, ending the kiss. She made an O shape with her thumb and forefinger, signaling. Her expression also softened. "I'm okay now." But Bota just stood there, his cheeks flushed red. Then he nodded his head repeatedly like a chicken pecking at grain, looking goofy. Seeing Bota still dazed, Sonia swam past him. "Let's go." Bota watched Sonia preparing to leave, a little regretfully. Bota also turned and swam after Sonia, but still dazed, his cheeks still flushed, his heart feeling like it would jump out of his chest. He thought, "What's wrong? My heart is beating so fast, I can't calm down." Bota tried to regain his composure and swam after Sonia. He glanced at her, his eyes full of hidden meaning. Then, Bota's gaze stopped, staring at Sonia's plump red lips, a captivating beauty. His eyes couldn't leave those moist lips, as if mesmerized. He unconsciously touched his own lips. Were they that soft? A strange feeling. Sonia was still swimming beside Bota, but suddenly, she remembered something that made her face turn pale, looking worried. She quickly covered her mouth. Sonia's face quickly flushed red like a boiled shrimp, looking cute. She stared at Bota's face. Was that a kiss? Sonia seemed to be so embarrassed, she became angry. She grabbed Bota's hair, pulling it back. A completely unexpected action. Bota didn't understand what was happening and was grabbed by the head by Sonia, unable to react. An unexpected scene. Bota was immediately forced into another kiss by Sonia. But this time it was different. But it wasn't a kiss, but a bite on the lip. Sonia, with fiery eyes, bit Bota's lip, a violent kiss. Bota was stunned, his eyes wide stopped. Then, Sonia let Bota go. Bota's face was pale. He didn't react, seemingly still in shock. Sonia recovered, giving an okay sign with her fingers. Bota was angry, running his hands through his hair. What was that for? As they were looking at each other, a dazzling light shone on them, making it impossible for them to open their eyes. Sonia was blinded by the light, quickly covering her eyes, unable to see anything. Bota couldn't see anything either. A round underwater vessel suddenly appeared, looking modern. It slowly landed in front of the two of them. Min sat inside, smiling happily. "Bota, Sonia, you're alive." The two were ecstatic to be rescued, giving each other a high five, celebrating their escape. The two quickly climbed inside the vessel, temporarily safe. Min turned to look at them, silently thanking. "Thank God. Are you two okay?" "My decision to come back was just in time." He asked cheerfully, "Where are Gong and Jocko?" Bota replied sadly, "Jocko is dead." Hearing this, Min was utterly bewildered, shouting, "What?" Sonia quickly spoke up. "What about Gong? Is he missing?" Saying that, she quickly grabbed another oxygen tank. "I'll go find him. Let me borrow this tank." Seeing this, Min stopped her. "No, we have to leave before sunset." He quickly said, "You all need to know this." But Sonia couldn't leave her comrade behind. "We can't just leave him here." Min's body trembled uncontrollably. "You saw those monsters too, right?" He explained. "They used the supply crates as bait for us divers." Min's face was pale, his whole body covered in cold sweat, trembling. They treat people like a food court." As he spoke, Min piloted the vessel away, trying to escape this dangerous place. Min shouted, "Get out of here, let's go." Then, the vessel shot straight up at extremely high speed. After going a short distance, they saw a monster with its mouth open, waiting for them, looking terrifying. The three were horrified. "It's Jen." Min quickly operated the lever on the control panel, trying to evade. He skillfully maneuvered the vessel, quickly swerving to one side, escaping the monster's attack. But it wouldn't give up, extending its giant tentacles towards the vessel, determined not to let its prey escape. Inside, the two were shaken violently, unable to stand firm. Its tentacle was wrapped tightly around the vessel, preventing it from leaving, a very critical situation. Jin used its strength to pull the vessel towards it. Bota gritted his teeth and swore, damn it. Jin, it used its eye to look into the glowing window of the vessel, its gaze full of killing intent. Min was scared, stammering. Was it lying in ambush? Bota quickly grabbed an oxygen tank from the shelf, shouting, "We have to get out of here." Min also quickly regained his composure, leaving the pilot's seat and running, not daring to linger. Jin's eyes were angry, filled with blood vessels, looking ferocious. The vessel was pulled closer by it, the distance shrinking. The three of them were violently shaken, falling backwards, unable to resist. It used its tentacle to slam the vessel into a wall. The vessel crashed directly into it, a terrifying impact, causing the three people inside to be unable to stand and fall in a heap, a pathetic sight. Bota's head was slammed hard onto the ground, the pain making him grit his teeth. Not stopping there, it again used its tentacle to grab the vessel, pulling it away easily. Then it dragged the vessel away, then continued to throw the vessel down into an abandoned building, a brutal act. Jin turned and swam away. The abandoned building completely collapsed, turning into a pile of rubble. Its roar thundered, echoing everywhere. At the port, people saw seagulls flying in the sky, a chaotic scene. The once peaceful town now only heard the cries of birds, a frightening silence. People were hurrying with their work, while the children were still playing carefree, unaware of the impending disaster. A little boy came over to help his mother hang clothes. "Mom, I'm hungry." From a tallest building, a voice called out, "Is it okay over there?" Lita bowed her head in thanks. "Thank you very much." Then she observed the town around her. The sound of a hammer hitting a nail still echoed regularly from a rooftop. The woman leaned her head out from the balcony and asked, "Honey, are you almost done?" The man turned his head and replied, "It's nothing, just a small job." Everyone was busy with their work and daily lives, the atmosphere still somewhat peaceful. The light from the clear blue sky shone down, making the scene more vivid and peaceful, a fragile beauty. Everyone was creating a tense, but incredibly silent atmosphere, as if something terrible was about to happen. Everyone could feel it. Everyone's eyes were directed to one side, all serious, silent, no one saying a word to anyone else. The scene was very peaceful, with the sunlight shining everywhere, a quiet beauty. Suddenly, a beast slowly emerged from under the water, shattering that peace. It sent water splashing everywhere, then extended its long tentacles, looking terrifying. The man fixing the roof stared at it blankly, not understanding what was happening. The children playing soccer also froze, stunned. The villagers were bewildered, their eyes filled with disbelief, staring at the monster, a horrifying sight. The monster stood up, revealing its hideous body, looking like a monster straight out of hell. The people now realized the danger, quickly scattering and running, screaming, "It's a sea monster, a sea monster." The monster extended its short legs onto the shore. The people screamed in terror, a chaotic scene. The giant monster slowly rose, bringing with it darkness and death that enveloped everything, its body writhing like a nightmare. Full of long tentacles, twisting in the air like the devil's whips, looking ghastly. Its sharp, dagger-like teeth parted, roaring in madness. The monster's appearance completely destroyed the town. The people were all knocked away by it. No one could resist. In a flash, an entire building was lifted into the air like a tattered toy, then mercilessly thrown away. Pieces of walls, tin roofs, and steel frames shattered, flying everywhere, carrying with them the horrified screams of the people, a terrible tragedy. The people panicked, pushing and shoving to escape. No one dared to look back, where a storm like a giant blade was sweeping everything away, sparing nothing. The giant tentacles from the monster shot out, like steel whips, wrapping around the people, not letting them escape. The tentacles pulled them into the air, accompanied by everyone's piercing screams, a tragic scene. The people in front saw this and quickly scattered, while some looked back, not believing what was happening. They were wrapped by its tentacles. It opened its hideous mouth wide. The people screamed for help. "Save me, no." The man looked at its lolling tongue, terrified, no. The people, one by one, were all put into its mouth, a tragic end. It closed its mouth, using its sharp teeth to chew again and again, a gruesome scene. The people hiding in their houses trembled, not daring to breathe loudly, terrified to the extreme. They were scared, sweating profusely, but it still found them. There was no escape. Its eyes looked menacingly at the people, full of killing intent, as if it wanted to eat them alive. Seeing its face, the people inside could no longer remain calm. panicking completely. It used its tentacle to lift the entire house off the ground, a terrifying strength. Then, it shook the house violently. The people inside, from the windows, began to fall into its mouth, unable to resist. The people tried to cling to the inside of the house, but it was useless. The man couldn't hold on any longer and was flung out, falling straight into the monster's mouth, a sudden death. Everyone struggled in its mouth, but couldn't escape. Despair enveloped them. The people cried, screaming until their throats were hoarse. No help. Without a second word, it directly bit down on the people, fresh blood spurting from its mouth, staining the whole area red. Elsewhere, the villagers were still unaware of the tragedy unfolding, still immersed in a false sense of peace. But they faintly heard something. What's that? What's that sound? Lita and Kana were walking outside when they also felt something was unusual, asking doubtfully, Kana, over there. The direction Lita pointed to was showing strange movements, causing the calm water surface to suddenly become turbulent, a bad sign. Its tentacles began to attack the people on this side, stabbing straight into the tallest building, destroying everything. The people screamed in fear, were under attack. What? Lita worriedly huddled into Kana's arms, her eyes suddenly widening. Utterly terrified, Kana gritted her teeth. Is it a sea monster? They could only see its tentacles wriggling, moving towards this side. It's moving. They're the target. Its body gradually appeared. The people were scared, quickly turning to run, screaming, "It's coming, run!" There was a group of brave men, holding sharp spears, shouting, "Don't be afraid, it's just one monster." The men raised their spears high, determined to protect this place. "Take up your weapons." Kana turned and said, "Mr. Mao, we need to be with the weapon guide." Mao replied, "Kana, Lita, leave it to the men. Get out of here." Kana didn't leave immediately, but stood there, thinking, so be it. Then Kana turned and said, "Lita, run as fast as you can." Lita was confused. "Hide somewhere safe." Then she gradually understood, replying, "Be careful, Kana." With that, Lita ran off, Kana's voice echoing from behind, "Run." She hardened her face, gritting her teeth as she looked at the monster, her eyes full of hatred. "It's destroying everything. It's Jen, one of the 7 great sea monsters. Why is it here? For what reason?" Elsewhere, someone's hurried voice rang out, "Sir, sir." The door was violently thrown open. The subordinate outside opened the door, informing the chief, "A sea monster has appeared, sir." He was sitting counting his gold and silver when he was startled. "Impossible." The chief rushed out to the balcony to assess the situation, his face full of worry. He was terrified. "Jen, what is it doing here?" The chief's face turned pale. He gritted his teeth, sweat pouring down like rain, his whole body trembling with fear, his voice also trembling. "Is it because of the search party?" The chief's eyes widened. "Jocko, what have you done to this world?" He held his head, his teeth chattering. "We have to find somewhere higher." The subordinate quickly asked, "Chief, what should we do?" The chief pushed him away, saying, "Run." Then he rushed inside, grabbed his bag of gold and silver, and fled without hesitation. Seeing this, the subordinate asked, "What are you doing, sir?" The chief shouted, "Shut up, Mao." He turned, gritting his teeth. "Jen has come here, so be it." Hearing this, the subordinate's face turned pale with fear. Seeing the chief was still determined to leave, he rushed to stop him. "Sir, you can't just leave like this. We need someone to lead." Outside, the monster was still slowly crawling forward, when it suddenly seemed to notice something. Its body gradually began to steam, its face showing clear pain, and many burns appeared on its body, a pathetic sight. Kana gritted her teeth and thought, it can still continue even while being burned by the light? The villagers shouted together, "Let's join forces to protect this place. Don't be afraid." Seeing this, Kana tried to stop them, saying, "Hey Mao, we need a different kind of weapon. A long sword would be better." Mao shook his head. "Leave us and run now, Kana." He smiled reassuringly. "Kana, don't worry. I'll protect you." Kana paid no attention, continuing to try and stop them. "The spears won't work." "Hey Mao." One of them stopped Kana. "It's dangerous here, Kana. Run, Kana." The monster, burned by the light, dove into the water. "It's over there." The villagers didn't let it go, but continued to pursue it. "This way, block its path." They threw their spears down, attacking. The spears pierced through its body, causing it to scream in pain. It sank beneath the water, carrying with it the strong smell of blood, a horrifying scene. Seeing it leave, the villagers cheered happily. "Great, we did it." But unexpectedly, its tentacle shot up from under the water, a surprise attack. It began to turn back, covered in countless embedded spears, looking ferocious. Seeing this, the villagers' faces turned pale with fear. Kana shouted, "Get back." The villagers were terrified, quickly turning to run, not daring to look back. But unfortunately, it was too late. It had already opened its hideous mouth wide, swallowing all the people a horrifying scene. Its two eyes lit up, its mouth still continuing to swallow everyone, sparing no one. The people couldn't resist, just being swallowed into its stomach, a tragic end. The people cried and begged, "No, save us." But they were already wrapped by its tentacles, unable to escape. A man who seemed to have escaped was running away, when he was suddenly pierced through by its tentacle, collapsing on the spot. It continued to crawl onto the land, slaughtering everyone. That guy was put into its mouth and chewed, a gruesome scene. Mao was angry, throwing a spear, but before he could charge, its tentacles struck him hard, sending him flying. Mao was sent flying far away. Then it slowly extended its tentacle, approaching him, looking dangerous. Mao was terrified, not daring to breathe loudly, looking at the tentacle hovering above his head, his heart pounding. He fearfully turned his head back and saw the old man, a familiar image. The old man had been pierced through by its tentacle, blood dripping, a pathetic sight. Mao watched helplessly as the old man's body was slowly lifted into the air, unable to do anything. The old man's pleading eyes looked at Mao, full of despair. The old man was scared, begging through his tears, "Save me, Mao." Mao felt the blood from the old man's body drip onto his face, a feeling of utter helplessness. Looking at the tentacles full of human corpses, the people dangling in front of him, a scene of hell on earth. The old man slowly closed his eyes, his tragic life ending. Mao couldn't believe it, muttering, What is happening?" Everyone was slowly being put into its mouth. No one escaped. He stood there, his body rigid. "You monster!" Its tentacles slowly wrapped around Mao, then lifted him up, a feeling of helplessness. The tentacle brushed past Mao's face. This kind of demon, how can humans defeat it? His body was just being brought to its mouth, an unavoidable death. Mao was still dazed, not resisting. How can this thing be defeated? A woman holding a weapon charged straight forward, a familiar figure. It was Kana, seeing it about to put Mao in its mouth. Kana stabbed straight into its body, a decisive attack. Its blood splattered onto Kana's face, a ghastly sight. Thanks to Kana, the monster was startled, throwing Mao away, a narrow escape from death. As Mao fell, he saw the full, giant, horrifying form of the monster and a small figure fighting it. It was Kana. She stabbed straight into one of the monster's eyes. Mao was surprised to be saved by Kana. Kana. She used all her strength, holding the hilt of her blade to push it deeper into the monster's body, causing it to lose its composure and attack wildly, no longer in control. Kana used all her strength, stabbing deep into its side, using the momentum to leap far away, escaping its counterattack. She jumped high, embedding an iron hilt into the monster's body. One hand still gripping the rope, the giant monster below roaring madly, struggling violently. Reaching a certain height, she used all her strength to decisively pull the iron rod out of the monster's body, fresh blood gushing out like a spring. After pulling the weapon out, Kana did a graceful somersault in the air, then landed safely on the ground. Holding the weapon tightly, gaining momentum from above, she once again stabbed straight into the wound she had just created, a fatal blow. Kana used her strength to drag the weapon, creating a long gash on the monster's skin. Its blood splattered into the sky, a horrifying sight. One of her hands gripped the weapon's rope tightly, both feet pushing with all their might against the weapon, creating the longest possible wound on the monster, a finishing blow. Suddenly, many cracks appeared on the iron rod. It gradually broke. The weapon had reached its limit. The weapon she was holding immediately broke in two, a disadvantageous situation. Even so, Kana handled the situation very calmly. She spun to gain momentum, leaped far away, and then threw away the broken weapon without hesitation. The force of her jump was quite fast. She slid a long way on the ground before stopping, luckily uninjured, inflicting a critical wound on the monster, its blood spraying like rain right in front of Kana. Yet she maintained a calm, cold composure. The monster, in pain, roared towards Kana, its giant body and tentacles flailing everywhere, a chaotic scene. Mao found the recent near-death situation insane. He stared wide-eyed, his mouth agape in astonishment, looking at Kana, unable to believe his eyes. Everyone else, holding weapons and hiding behind an old building, was just as surprised. Kana, a resident hiding inside a house, holding two large knives, looked out, sweating with joy. It's Kana. Everyone who saw her was incredibly surprised by her sudden appearance, an unexpected savior. Behind the blood-stained white hair, Kana's calm, determined face was met by a group of hunters holding weapons, stunned into silence, not understanding what was happening. Suddenly, she raised a hand towards Mao, who was staring blankly at Kana, speechless. She kept her eyes on the monster, then said to Mao, "Weapon." Mao fumbled, pulling out his 2 knives and handing them to Kana. "All right." He quickly took his knives, saying, "Here you go, Kana." Kana took Mao's 2 knives, silently looking at them, then thought, ineffective. She looked at the 2 short knives in her hands, calculating. The knives were too small to inflict a deep wound on the monster. To one side, she glanced at the frightened residents hiding in their houses, her expression full of worry. Her blue eyes narrowed slightly. "I don't have time to go home and get my weapon." The beautiful, strong girl ordered everyone, "Evacuate everyone from the large buildings." The people behind her responded in unison, "Roger." Kana turned her head back, calmly telling everyone, "The sea monster will use the shadows of the buildings to hide. If anyone wants to attack it, do it in the sunlight." Everyone obediently followed Kana's instructions, admiring her. "Roger, Roger." She calmly observed the monster's next move, preparing for a life-or-death battle. Its enormous, oversized body moved, its blood-filled mouth roaring in front of her, a horrifying sight. Just as it moved a short distance, the ugly monster opened its mouth wide, letting out a deafening roar that echoed everywhere. One of its tentacles tightly gripped Kana's broken weapon, which was stuck in its back, then pulled it out and tossed it away mercilessly. Still angry, it threw Kana's old weapon to the ground, a provocative act. Her eyes narrowed slightly, looking at the monster. Then she recalled the past, painful memories suddenly flooding back. Trains were running into the port. Kana's thoughts, "I just wanted to keep my identity a secret and blend into the lives of the refugees to escape the pursuit of the Busan Federation." On a ship carrying refugees, including a young Kana and Bota, with Lita also by their side, "I thought I could protect the kids if I stayed here." She remembered the happy times at the port. She held Lita, while the young boy Bota walked beside them, a joyful and peaceful scene while they were together at Oasis Port. Kana's caring eyes stared intently at Bota's face that I could watch Bota grow up. Switching to another scene, full of happiness, Kana was hugged by Lita, and she had taken care of Lita for those 4 years, a close bond. Kana's gentle eyes as she watched Lita sleeping soundly, a look full of love. She gently stroked the little girl's face like a real sister, looking at her and thinking, "I just want..." Suddenly, she pulled her hand back. Then Kana looked at her own hand, thinking for a long time, her face full of contemplation. Her eyes showed her hope for the future, for so much joy with the 2 of them. They walked together, living peaceful days like a real family. That was Kana's dream, her wish. Every day is a wonderful day. I just want things to stay like this forever. Kana's previous memory was of a human corpse covered by a sea monster, a gruesome sight. Maybe that's why I chose to leave. The person's entire body was covered. Only the legs were recognizable as human. Kana continued to think, ignoring all warnings. As she recalled the previous image, her expression gradually changed, but that was foolish. Her eyes and face were no longer calm. Her eyes turned red, looking at the sea monster with rage. Right now, I need to remember everything about them. She faced the sea monster alone, preparing for a life-or-death battle. The image of the giant sea monster, a battle about to unfold. She continued to think, sea monsters are everywhere. There would be no such thing as the sea without sea monsters. The reason she wanted to become a harpooner, a past memory. Tion stood beside Kana, asking in surprise, "You want to become a harpooner?" At that time, Kana was very determined, saying, "By any means, I will become a harpooner." Ever since one of her eyes was injured, her hatred for sea monsters had reached its peak. Kana's eyes at that time were bloodshot with rage, and "I will kill every single monster in this world." On the shore now, people were evacuating to another place. Harpooners are the ones who protect people from sea monster attacks. Among them, Lita was also very worried for Kana, for everyone. The little girl was ready to rush into danger to protect those around her. The sea monster let out another loud roar, then opened its mouth wide towards Kana, a direct attack. She was now very strong, determined to protect everyone, preparing to attack the sea monster. "That I live for this." She rushed towards the giant sea monster, shouting loudly, "Combat! Come on!" As she charged, Kana yelled to build up her courage. Then the scene shifts to Bota under the sea, a different setting. A door in the heritage site below suddenly lit up. It had been buried under rubble for a long time. The safe vault door opened, and 3 people in diving gear were swimming up to the sea surface, looking urgent. Among them was Bota. They were completely unaware of the situation at the port, still in the dark. From the deep sea, they approached the surface, the sunlight shining down, making their diving suits even more distinct. They used all their strength, surfacing at the same time, out of breath. Sonia gasped, hastily removing her helmet and panting, her face pale. The three of them breathed a sigh of relief, stepping onto the port that we made it. I thought we were going to die. As soon as they said it, the expressions on all three of their faces turned to shock, unable to believe their eyes. They stared at the smoldering port. They stood frozen in place, looking at the completely destroyed port, a horrifying sight. Some places had been blown up, causing smoke and fire to billow up. Bota stammered, "This place." Suddenly, Bota realized the danger. An image of Kana appeared in his mind. Kana and Lita also appeared in his thoughts. Bota was extremely worried for them both. Lita. He gritted his teeth, a cold sweat breaking out from worry for his loved ones. The sea had submerged most of the land for hundreds of years. Now, the small remaining part of the land, Oasis Port, was being attacked by a sea monster, the Great Port. When Bota and the other two stepped onto the port, they were met with a scene of desolate ruins, with smoke rising in plumes, looking like a battlefield. Every house was destroyed, nothing intact. The expressions on Bota, Sonia, and the person next to them were of disbelief. They gritted their teeth helplessly in a way. Suddenly, Bota seemed to understand something. He remembered the giant sea monster that he and the others had barely managed to escape from. As if realizing something unbelievable, Bota's expression contorted, a cold sweat broke out, and he stammered, "Don't tell me. Xenot has left the water." As soon as he thought it, Bota quickened his pace, one hand gripping his sword tightly, followed by Sonia and the other person. They silently looked at the ruined landscape before them. As they entered the port, the ruined houses and bloodstains were everywhere, a gruesome sight. In front of Bota was a completely collapsed house. A roar from a sea monster echoed from the other side, sounding terrifying. Seeing this, Bota panicked, his face pale, and he started to run, shouting, "Lita, Kana!" Suddenly, Bota froze. He recognized the faint sound of a child crying nearby. He turned around, his face as if he didn't want to see what he was thinking, a bad feeling. Before Bota's eyes was a child, only about 3 to 5 years old, wailing beside his father's body, "Daddy." The boy was terrified, burying his head in his dead father's chest, surrounded by a pool of dark red blood, a heartbreaking scene. Seeing that scene, Bota was enraged, gritting his teeth in extreme hatred. They stopped and approached the boy. One of them came closer, picked the boy up, and said, "Hey, little one, come with us." But it wasn't just the boy's father's body. There were many more. Bota inadvertently turned to another side, an even more horrifying scene that left him speechless. Before him were countless bodies, bloody, piled up, a scene of hell on earth. They were all people Bota knew well. Blood flowed from them, making the scene even more unsettling and indescribable pain. Seeing this, Bota's eyes widened, his anger reaching its peak, unable to control it any longer. From a distance, many loud noises echoed, causing everyone to turn their attention. In the distance, the sea monster's large tentacles were attacking randomly, destroying everything. They quickly prepared to approach the monster. The closer they got, the more gigantic its tentacles became, moving ferociously. Sonia suddenly pointed towards the sea monster and shouted, "That way, it hasn't left yet." Bota turned towards Sonia and saw her pick up a gun, ready to fight. The gun was firmly fixed to an iron plate. Bota ran over and, with all his might, pulled the gun free, an extraordinary effort. Bota's pull was so strong that the screws holding the gun in place gradually came loose. They fell scattered on the ground. Bota decisively grabbed the weapon and prepared for a life-or-death battle with the sea monster, without hesitation. He held the weapon tightly, running worriedly towards the sea monster. Sonia called after him from behind, but to no avail. "Bota!" He ran faster and faster. In his mind now, he only wanted to run to protect his loved ones. He couldn't let them be in danger. He was extremely worried, afraid that something unexpected would happen to them. He prayed silently in his heart, "Lita, Kana." His lips were tightly pressed, cold sweat breaking out on his face from fear. He prayed silently, "Please, let everything please be okay." The scene shifts to this side of the battle. Kana alone was facing the sea monster, an uneven fight. She leaped into the air, holding knives in both hands, decisively stabbing into the monster's thick skin, a bold attack. Kana spun in the air, creating a rather long gash on the sea monster. Its blood splattered, dyeing her entire body red, a bloody spectacle. Suddenly, from behind her, a giant tentacle of the sea monster approached Kana, but she quickly realized it and reacted in time. In an instant, she jumped straight onto the sea monster. Looking down from above, the monster had already taken a lot of damage, but it was still very fierce, showing no signs of weakening. She slid down to the ground, using one of the knives in her hand to maintain balance, and then landed safely. Without letting her guard down, as soon as she touched the ground, she continued to observe the monster's actions, preparing for the next attacks. The sea monster continuously used its tentacles to attack Kana, but she skillfully dodged them all. She quickly avoided the dangerous blows, then hid behind walls, blocking a few times, but then the wall was shattered to pieces. Its attacks were relentless, forcing Kana to move nimbly to dodge, without a moment's rest. She quickly ran to hide behind a large crate, temporarily finding cover. The sea monster's sharp tentacles pierced through the crate. Luckily, Kana managed to avoid the blow in time, narrowly escaping. Kana hid to one side, observing the situation. The giant monster was moving, searching for its prey, looking ferocious. Suddenly, it seemed to have detected something behind a collapsed building, a sign of danger. It slithered around the building, checking carefully. Suddenly, a large rock flew straight out of one of the building's doors, an unexpected event. Kana used the door as a shield. Then she grabbed her dagger and charged straight at the monster, a reckless attack. The dagger easily plunged deep into the monster's body, creating a significant wound. Kana immediately used the momentum to spin around once. She ran along the monster's body, the dagger following, creating a long cut that exposed the flesh inside, a vicious attack. The monster's blood gushed out from the wound, dyeing an entire area red. Suddenly, Kana keenly sensed approaching danger and reacted extremely quickly. She fell back, rolling over once, quickly escaping the slam of a tentacle that had just come down, a lucky escape. She rolled continuously several times to create a safe distance from the monster, not daring to be careless. Then, she successfully braked, getting into a solid defensive stance. Suddenly, she looked down worriedly, her face full of disappointment. Kana's dagger was chipped and dented in one spot, oh my weapon. At this moment, the monster had drawn near, opening its hideous mouth wide, ready to devour its prey. Kana glared at it with hatred, determined to fight to the death, not backing down. Suddenly, from the monster's right, a pile of rubble flew from somewhere, thrown towards it to attract its attention. Kana was startled and turned to look. It turned out that on top of a ruined house, a group of people were relentlessly throwing rocks at the monster and calling her name. Kana, Mao, enraged, roared, "Die, you monster!" Kana was terrified, wanting to stop them and come back. However, the monster had already swung its giant tentacle, a devastating attack. A crushing blow came down, sending all the people supporting Kana flying. She screamed in pain, no. Kana charged forward again, wanting to draw the monster's attention to herself. "Over here. I'm over here." The monster's tentacle twitched, as if gathering something inside, a dangerous sign. It spat a blue liquid towards Kana, a surprise attack. Kana couldn't avoid it, completely surrounded. She was quickly submerged by the liquid, unable to escape. The clothes and equipment on Kana were instantly corroded by the liquid, a pathetic sight. Her body was tormented by excruciating pain, so damaged that she was stunned, with no strength left to resist. The monster then swung its tentacle, sending Kana flying, a devastating blow. Kana's body flew straight out, crashing through several layers of house walls before falling heavily to the ground. Finally, Kana fell in pain onto a scrap car yard, unconscious. Her teammates were terrified, trembling. "Kana, it got Kana!" Mao, enraged and panicked, called her name. "Kana!" Kana struggled, nearly unconscious, the situation extremely critical. The monster's tentacle slammed down with a loud thud right next to Kana, a terrifying threat. It looked enormous, like a horrifying fortress wall, impossible to overcome. Kana tightened her grip on the dagger's hilt. "The dagger is broken. My body feels like it's about to fall apart." She breathed weakly, I can't die here." She gritted her teeth again, determined. "Get up." Kana, both enraged and pleading, "Please, please get up." The monster roared, opening its mouth wide to eat her, a horrifying sight. Her teammates were all terrified. "Kana!" At the decisive moment, a flash of light shot from somewhere, piercing straight through the monster's head, a surprise attack. Mao's group looked back in astonishment. Kana was also surprised, trying to glance over to see what was happening. From high above, a man holding a gun appeared, looking heroic. His face shone with immense rage and extreme hatred. Mao's group was bewildered. Bota, Kana also seemed to see a ray of hope. Bota, enraged, cursed, "Die, you damn monster." He once again raised his gun, frantically firing at the monster, without mercy. The monster was continuously attacked, unable to fight back anymore. It seemed like it was about to fall. Mao's group watched this spectacular turnaround in amazement, unable to believe their eyes. They couldn't react, just stood and watched Bota. Kana below had also regained some strength. She called him Bota. Bota understood, pulling a weapon from his hip belt. Kana. The blade created a powerful, circular motion in the air, a beautiful sight. It landed right in front of Kana, who had just stood up, a perfect coordination. She grabbed the blade and charged, a slash as fast as the wind, striking straight at the monster, a decisive attack. Kana gritted her teeth, mustering her last bit of strength, and charged straight ahead without hesitation. Her figure was like a phantom, as fast as the wind, shredding the monster's body, a finishing blow. The monster cried out in agony. Kana continued to swing the blade, slashing across its body, giving it no chance to retaliate. A powerful upward slash created a large wound on the monster, fresh blood gushing out like a spring. The blade emitted a mechanical sound, and then changed shape, a surprising feature. A sharp blade was instantly extended from the tip of the weapon, looking formidable. Kana used the momentum, flying into the air and doing a beautiful flip, a skillful maneuver. She gritted her teeth, dodging a tentacle attack with extremely fast reflexes. She was like a whirlwind, spinning in the air and then slashing down at the monster, a critical hit. After that, Kana landed powerfully on the ground. The monster's tentacles fell in pieces like straw, a horrifying sight. Its body was cut in half by her, ending the monster's tragic fate. Mao's group couldn't help but rejoice. Awesome. She cut in half. On the monster's body, the remaining parts wriggled, emitting strange cries, a gruesome sight. It slithered, turning its head as if to leave, with no strength left to fight. The sharp-eyed group also noticed it's running away. The sea monster is retreating. Suddenly, the monster accelerated at an astonishing speed. Bota was stunned for a moment, not understanding what was happening. Kana also quickly understood what it wanted to do. Its target was the other civilians, a malicious plan. They hurriedly fled, shouting, "It's going crazy, run." Bota also jumped down from the high platform. "Where do you think you're going?" Bota was parkouring over rooftops like in an action movie. Chasing the monster closely, he came face to face with the beautiful Kana. Bota. Kana. The boss lady Kana didn't waste a second, instantly coming up with a plan. At all costs, we have to chase this thing back to the sea. Most importantly, no civilians get a single scratch. Bota nodded instantly upon hearing it. Got it. A certain commander began to coordinate, pointing his hand towards a building that looked like it was about to collapse, his voice booming. "Move to the shipwreck building over there now. Hurry up." The reluctant rescue workers were trying to herd the public to safety. Their mouths were shouting, "Run. Get out of the shadows, run." Little Lita was lost in the crowd, her face clearly showing she was overthinking. Suddenly, Lita seemed to have a bad feeling. Her eyes stung, tears threatening to spill. "Kana, are you two okay?" Suddenly, an SOS scream rang out. The whole crowd turned around bewildered, like, what was that? The commander from before yelled again, his voice full of panic. "Run." The monster, its nose as keen as a hound's, had sniffed out the human buffet and changed course. It bared its horrifying set of teeth, still topped with human blood. Lita saw that and froze in fear for 5 seconds. Lita was also swept away by the panicked crowd, running like she'd never run before, while the monster casually extended its meter-long tentacles to grab people like a claw machine. They could only scream, "Run." Then boom, a bullet from nowhere blew the monster's head in two. "Oh my god." Bota looked at it, his eyes as cold as ice, gritting his teeth, followed by a barrage of bullets as fierce as a summer storm. This thirsty monster was still full of energy, rampaging everywhere. Bota had to shout for everyone to get out of the way. Get out of the shadows of the buildings now. The people hastily turned and fled for their lives. The monster is coming. Someone was so scared they were sweating buckets, their mouths screaming, "Someone save us." The monster opened its mouth wide, ready to devour humanity. Despite being injured in many places, it still said no to giving up its favorite human flesh. 2 poor kids were cornered near the monster's shadow. The 2 kids were pale with fear, standing still as statues, their eyes wide open. The monster opened its mouth wide, preparing to munch on a tasty meal, when in that hair-raising moment, a divine hand pushed the 2 kids out of the jaws of death in an instant. It was Lita, the guardian angel, appearing just in time. The 2 children were thrown aside. They hugged each other and tumbled to the ground. Lita also lost her balance because of this, and the little girl almost ended up in the monster's stomach. Bota watched the scene with his heart pounding, and Kana also rushed over to help. Lita fell head over heels right in front of the monster. The little girl was bewildered, her eyes wide, her gaze shifting from surprise to sheer terror. Faster than an X turning on you, the monster swallowed Lita whole. Bota froze. What the hell is happening before my eyes? Kana also froze completely at that moment. Bota let out a scream, full of pain and bitterness. Lita. He tried to run as fast as he could, as the monster was slowly savoring the little girl. Lita looked at him, her eyes lifeless, like a silent farewell. Bota. The monster swallowed the little girl in a flash, blood spewing from its mouth. A truly horrifying and disgusting scene. Bota couldn't believe what he was seeing. He roared in bitterness. No! The monster's mouth began to close. Lita still clung to a faint glimmer of hope. She tried to reach up. Her tiny hand tried to scratch hard at the wall of its throat. The hope of survival was now as thin as a thread for the poor little girl. Lita seemed to have lost all her courage. She fearfully called out her brother's name loudly. Bota. Bota also heard his sister's faint call. He responded with all his strength. Lita. The gunshots rang out again, relentlessly. Bota clutched his gun, rushing to save his sister despite the danger. Bota ran while shouting her name in desperation. Lita. One of the monster's tentacles whipped straight towards him. It struck with a devastating blow. If Bota hadn't dodged in time, he would have been mincemeat down there. He roared in fury. Another volley of bullets was shipped straight to the monster. The bullets flew relentlessly, injuring it quite severely. The monster flew into a rage. It counterattacked immediately. Bota also had to dodge and run to avoid it. He was exhausted, dragging his heavy steps towards the monster, his mouth still calling out. Lita. While the monster continued its frantic rampage, it seemed very bitter about being pressed by humans, while Bota frantically searched for its trail. The monster continued its bloody and destructive game of hide-and-seek. Bota caught up with it, dirty water from a monster splashing onto him, forcing him to cover his face with his hand. Bota was still determined to save his sister. He did not waver. Bota tried to get up to continue. Then another massive wave crashed down and swept him away. Kana had just arrived. She was circling the area calling his name, Bota. The monster now seemed to want to disappear. It turned and swam out to the deep sea. Bota was beaten half to death. He lay struggling amidst a pile of scrap metal in the sea. He tried to open his eyes. The monster slowly sank to the bottom of the ocean, then disappeared without a trace. The sea surface returned to a frightening stillness. Bota was still somewhat conscious, but he felt utterly helpless, only able to call his sister's name, Lita. Gradually, he slipped into a coma, completely offline. His sister's name still echoed in his mind, Lita. Bota remembered the day his mother gave birth to Lita. That image and his mother's warm voice were still crystal clear. The baby is very healthy. The whole family gathered around the mother's bed. Everyone was overjoyed. Mother named her Lita. Father and Bota leaned in closer to look at the squirming baby sister. His mother said, half joking, she's crying like she wants the sea monsters to hear. Bota was terrified by that, urging his mother, Mom, hurry and soothe her. The sea monsters will come. His mother said nothing, just quietly handed the baby to him and said, Bota, you hold her. Me? The first time holding his sister, Bota was a bit clumsy, just staring at her. The baby was rosy, pretty, and adorable. She smiled at her brother. Bota felt a strange warmth in his heart, both proud and joyful. He quickly showed his mother, Mom, look at this baby. Bota turned to look at his mother. Her hand had gone limp. The prominent veins on her hand made him stare blankly, not understanding what was happening. His father hugged his mother tightly, crying silently. His mother slowly closed her eyes, sinking into an eternal sleep. The father sobbed, his tears flowing in grief for his wife. Bota seemed to understand something. He quietly called Mom. The sunset was also the time his mother passed away, forever. Bota called out in pain, Mommy. Bota still remembered that fateful day as if it were yesterday, the day his mother brought Lita, and then his mother left. The boat drifted on the sea. His father and sister played together, while Bota sat huddled in a corner, looking gloomy. Little Lita, innocent and unaware of what was happening, still laughed and played cheerfully, while Bota remained in a depressed mood, not saying a word. Before leaving, his father carefully reminded him, Bota, look after Lita while I'm out hunting. Bota sulked, refusing. Why do I have to do that? The father understood his son's heart and could only feel sad. His father tried to find a reason to persuade his stubborn son. We're out of food. I'll die for something tonight. He gently advised Bota, I can only be here for so long. He placed his full trust in his son. You have to take care of Lita when I'm gone. I believe in you, Bota. Then he prepared to dive into the sea. I'll be back soon. Bota still sat in a corner, his face sullen. Bota remembered with deep regret. I blamed her because she took Mom away. Lita toddled over to her brother. She wanted him to play with her. Bota was annoyed. He pushed her away. Get away. The little girl pouted, looking adorable. Lita was attracted by something in the distance. Bota still ignored his sister, his heart tormented with guilt. He thought his mother would still be alive if the girl wasn't here. He resented his sister. Lita crept closer to the edge of the boat. If only she had never existed. Bota glanced at his sister. Lita stumbled, about to fall into the water. Her footing was unsteady, just about to tumble over. Tion surfaced from the water. He slowly climbed up the ladder, his voice calling out, I'm back. Seeing no one respond, he quickly called out loudly, Bota. He rushed down to the lower deck, Bota. The sight before him was astonishing. The two siblings, Bota and Lita, were sleeping soundly, hugging each other. He looked at the two children, and his heart softened. He gently came over to tuck the two siblings in. So small and cute. Lita looks more and more like her mother. I love her so much. Bota startled awake. His sister's image was still in his mind. Lita. He opened his eyes and saw that he was lying with other injured people. Sonia was sitting guard beside him. He suddenly sat up, startling Sonia. He opened his eyes wide. Seeing him awake, Sonia spoke up. "You're finally awake, Bota." He didn't answer her, but hurriedly ran off somewhere. Sonia called after him, "Wait, Bota, you shouldn't be moving." Bota. He remembered the past. The most comfortable moment was when he got to solo with Kana. The image of him leaving his sister behind, protecting her by himself. I was always confident that I had gotten stronger. He threw a punch at the ball guy right in front of him. Bota rained blows on them. They were beaten so badly they turned pale with fear and fled in disarray that I always wanted to prove how strong I had become. Arriving home, Lita was disinfecting her brother's wounds. "Bota, no one wants to come near me because of you. Can you relax a little?" He smiled gently. "Tell me if anyone bothers you." Kana stood leaning against a pillar, silently watching the two siblings. She was deep in thought. Who knows what was loading in her mind? Outside, Bota was chatting with Kana. "I'm ready. I can fight anytime, but in this place." She interrupted. "It's too peaceful, isn't it?" He let out a sigh. "Yeah." Kana continued. "Is it because you want to prove yourself or show off your strength?" He was startled, returning to reality that I thought I'd gotten stronger. She turned to him, arrogant, conceited, and greedy. They're controlled by those things. He remembered the battles with the monsters that I thought I was ready. But when I saw that monster, I froze, just like when I was 12, full of fear and only thinking of running away. He slowly walked towards the door. That I haven't gotten any better. Footsteps approached. Bota looked up. He was quite surprised, Kana. She called his name, Bota. He gritted his teeth. Suddenly, he burst into tears that I couldn't protect Lita, Kana. Seeing him cry so miserably, Kana also felt extremely uncomfortable. His tears fell like rain. I couldn't. Bota collapsed. He knelt on the ground. I couldn't. A weapon plunged into the ground right in front of him. Bota was surprised, slowly raising his head. Kana gave a firm order. "Take your weapon and get up." He looked up at Kana, his face stained with tears. Kana's eyes suddenly turned bright red, and the sky also became ominously dark that we will cut them into pieces. The city after the earth-shattering battle was now as desolate as a garbage dump, everything in disarray, ruined after the fierce fight. The people were no different from refugees. They had to eat collectively, sharing every bit of food. Suddenly, a voice from a loudspeaker made everyone look up. "Don't lose faith, O residents of Oasis." The chairman was standing in the middle of the crowd, trying to lift their spirits and comfort them after the horrific riot that had just occurred. "Chairman, I will be by your side until the end. It's okay. We will rebuild from the rubble." Everyone was convinced by his powerful words, listening in silence. "Let's be strong and rebuild." They were all moved, their eyes welling up with tears, sir. They hugged each other tightly. Warm, tight hugs to start our lives over together. To build a brighter future, we can do it. "Thank you, Sir Chairman." At this moment, Kana and Bota also walked into the crowd. The chairman called her name. Kana. He opened his arms wide, expressing deep gratitude for her coming to protect the city MS. "Kana, thank you for protecting this place. Bota is truly amazing." Bota didn't wait for him to finish his sentence, immediately delivering a crushing punch to the chairman's face, sending him tumbling to the ground, knocked out on the spot. The people around hadn't even processed what was happening. They were surprised, questioning Bota. "Bota, what do you think you're doing?" A few others rushed to help the man up, his face already bruised and purple. "Chairman." A group of young men were about to rush in and beat him up. They cursed him terribly. "Are you out of your mind?" Bota was furious. He lost control, shouting straight into the mayor's face. "You knew about all of this, didn't you? You knew the sea monster Xenot was always right beneath us." The bystanders were still bewildered. Not understanding a thing about Bota's words, they asked incessantly, "What were you talking about?" A few more people quickly restrained Bota. Afraid of another fight, they advised him, "Calm down." "Bota, why would you do that to him?" The mayor's face was mysterious, trying to think of a way to wriggle out of it. "He intended to cover it up with the death of your sister." "Truly shameless, that I understand. You want to torment someone just because of your sister's death." The old man was still trying to act, deceiving everyone. "But this is the first time I've seen that sea monster." "Bota, angry, exposed the truth, lies. All the missing divers are in Xenot's cave. He revealed a shocking piece of information that made everyone pay attention. You offered the divers to the sea monster. The old man began his tearful tale as if he were the most pitiful victim. How could I have warned everyone about Xenot? Then the old man dismissed everything Bota said, trying to prove he was as clean as a white sheet of paper. How could I have known when Xenot would appear? To gain everyone's sympathy, the old man didn't hesitate to act so deeply that he fell to the ground, feigning remorse that I really didn't understand. Then he wailed even more pitifully. Are you saying that all the divers who went missing or were killed by Xenot are my fault? Truly turning black into white. This level of deceit is just unbelievable, making people want to deal with the old man right away. He pleaded, my only crime was trying to make the great port of Oasis a better place. Everyone was completely fooled by this pathetic drama. They turned to defend the chairman again. Sir Chairman, calm down, Bota. Bota was boiling with anger. He yelled so loudly it felt like everyone's head would burst. What the? Suddenly a voice came from the speaker. Mr. Chairman, the submarine has been submerged for over 3 hours. The chairman's face wrinkled like a monkey eating a chili. Oh, it's over. All the residents also buzzed with discussion at this news. Would the public be worried if the search team disappeared too? Bota and Kana also looked up to listen. Maybe. This shocking news sent a chill down everyone's spine. But those 6 people become food. It will be quiet for 6 months. The chairman looked into the distance, thinking to himself that 6 months was more than enough. He still insisted that his thinking was perfectly correct. People will forget about those creatures. The look in his eyes betrayed everything. It shone with vileness. Truly a rotten character from the start. That's how things have always been. The chairman, at this point, never expected to be exposed so painfully. What? Everyone stared at the old man. Their eyes were filled with indignation. They couldn't believe the truth was so bitter. They just wanted to deal with this disrespectful man immediately. People gradually approached him, the radio still echoing with accusations of his crimes. Isn't that what you said? The chairman shouted loudly. That's enough. The voice from the radio refused to be silent. That's Mr. Chairman. Suddenly, someone in the crowd fell to the ground in fear. I never asked for this. He trembled, clasping his hands and begging, please spare me. He was terrified, confessing all his crimes. Ever since more new people came here for the great relics, I only whispered to the people Mr. Chairman chose. How many could there be at this point? He confessed everything, hoping for leniency. All I did was tell them there was a new diving spot that no one knew about. That's all. Someone utterly surprised asked, wait, what? He was scared, trying to shift the blame to, I only did what Mr. Chairman told me to. The other person grabbed him by the collar, interrogating him. What are you talking about? Mr. Chairman, what choice? He revealed all the inhumanity and bottomless greed of the chairman. He chose the people to be sacrificed to Xenot. Here, when anyone dies, all their belongings become the property of the chairman. Bota suddenly realized something. He remembered, those were the sweet words of the old man when he called for adventurers. Welcome to the great port, adventurers. The treasure belongs to whoever finds it. It's completely yours. The old man smoothly said to him, I look forward to it, Bota. The look in his eyes at that time said it all. About this, at that time, he had deceived Bota, causing him to nearly die because of those lies that you've grown up a lot since the day you first came here. The old man even pretended to be grateful. We are always grateful for your help. This kind of deeply implicit way of speaking made it difficult to guess a deceitful person like him. Adventurers are always welcome. His false statement was exposed that we don't abandon wanderers. They had all endured enough. They gritted their teeth, angry at being deceived by him for so long. The old man spoke as if he were a saint with a silver tongue. The truth is, we always invite them. They roared when they learned the truth, all of them changing their attitude, looking at the chairman with daggers in their eyes. What? You're turning us into food for Xenot. The women were also shocked, pained by the loss of their loved ones, and why husband went missing while diving. Did he die like that? They looked like they wanted to tear the chairman to pieces to avenge the dead. In the face of the loss, the extreme pain he caused, my child too. My father too. Some people were still naive enough to believe in his fake kindness. Not believing what they had just heard, they asked again, Mr. Chairman, is that true? The old man had nothing left to say, his face as dark as the bottom of a pot. The chairman's eyebrows furrowed tightly. He growled, his face full of anger. So what? Immediately, Bota flared up, furiously rushing forward to grab the opponent's collar. You shameful bastard. The other man's face was dazed, pathetic, covered in bruises. You could even faintly see blood trickling from his nose. What's shameful? Don't you find it strange? A deep, steady voice rang out, a peaceful life, a peaceful village. Every word was like a hammer blow, striking straight into the minds of the crowd. How can a place like this exist, huh? At the same time, the image of the hideous monster returned, and each person's will slowly wavered. The only only reason this sea has no sea monsters is thanks to the power of Xenot. The crowd's eyes widened in disbelief. The chairman forcefully pulled his hand away from Bota, growling, "You can dive for treasure without danger thanks to Xenot." Kana stood right there, suddenly realizing something in the old man's words. "Thanks to Xenot." That's right. The old man pointed forward decisively. "Look," directing the crowd's gaze towards the desolate, ruined scene. "Do you dare to fight sea monsters every night?" The crowds all wavered once again. "Oh, you think you can live in peace like this forever?" Everyone simultaneously looked to the opposite side, the air heavy and suffocating. Only the old man's shouts could be heard. Every time one or two divers sacrificed themselves for Xenot, the rest can continue on. The chairman became more and more impassioned as he spoke, his eyes red and bloodshot. "That's how all of you are still here right now." Just then, a soft voice was heard from the side. What? The man hiding in the corner finally mustered the courage to step out. "What did you say, Chairman?" Two streams of tears slowly rolled down his cheeks, his face filled with sorrow. "You're saying I sold my son to Xenot in exchange for this life." The man stepped forward, something in his eyes seeming to shatter. "Why would I need this miserable life? Is that what I wanted?" In his mind, the image of his young son appeared. That MY son was only 19 years old. His voice choked. Then slowly, the choked sobs broke into tears as he remembered his son's warm smile. Kana's group stood behind, their eyes wide, unable to speak. The crowd's expression also collapsed instantly, everyone's face drenched in tears. They all turned their gaze towards the father writhing in the pain of losing his son. "Every day that passes in this world without him is like hell for me." "Why? Why would you do that?" The atmosphere around them felt like it was about to explode. That MY husband was a good man. He was already a father. "Give me back my son." The chairman was surrounded by a sea of the crowd's anger. He remained silent, not uttering a word. MY child too. But the old man was clearly still shameless, not recognizing his mistake at all. "This was for everyone. You all owe me." Someone had gone mad, angrily picking up a rock and throwing it straight at him. The people behind also joined in, rocks in hand, shouting loudly, "Shut up! Give me back my husband, you bastard!" The anger of the islanders had reached its peak. They rushed in and gave the chairman a sound beating. He covered his head, curled up on the ground, bearing the wrath of the people. They used whatever they had, hitting and cursing him terribly. D. The chairman's face turned pale with fear, trying to find a way to escape the crowd. He crawled and dragged himself, desperately begging for his life, his face already swollen, bruised, looking pathetic and wretched. "Save me." He crawled in front of Bota, kneeling and begging earnestly, his voice trembling. "Bota, Kana, save me." Bota was filled with extreme indignation, staring at the old man, finding it indescribably ridiculous. He gritted his teeth, growling each word, "Save you." The image of the half-human, half-beast monsters returned to Bota's mind. How could he forget? They were all residents of the floating island, people he knew, divers whose lives had been stolen in Xenot's cave. They had been turned into the most hideous forms, trapped there forever, left behind as grotesque creatures, with no way to return to their original forms. They too had once longed to live as humans. The diving helmet, a symbol of their pride, now had a crack on its glass. All of them. All the memories of that horrific adventure replayed in Bota's mind. He was in pain, tears welling up. They could never go home again. The chairman grew even more frightened. He felt no remorse. He only feared that the crimes he committed would lead to his brutal torture. The chairman bowed low, hugging Bota's leg, his bruised face contorted. He wailed, "I'm sorry. I was wrong." The sound of hurried footsteps approached the chairman. The sound of metal scraping on the ground created a chillingly shrill noise. The crowd behind, each armed, rushed forward aggressively. When the chairman saw this, he became even more panicked, quickly changing his target for help. "Kana, save me." Kana looked at him coldly, her eyes filled with a bone-chilling iciness. "Sir." Her hand tightened on her spear. She indifferently asked the chairman a question that Kana still hadn't found an answer to. Instead of exploiting others through the great relics and sacrificing divers, couldn't you think of another way for everyone to live? Kana's heart was filled with boundless disappointment. She bluntly exposed the chairman. "The real monster here is you." Even Kana, ignoring him, drove the old man to utter despair. His bloodshot eyes bulged. The glorious life he had painted for himself was now game over. A wooden club swung up, the whistling sound of the wind clearly audible. A crushing blow landed straight on the back of the chairman's neck. The surprise attack left him no time to react, taking a critical hit. The chairman clutched his head, blood streaming down, curling up like a shrimp, cornered and bearing the continuous blows from the islanders. Before the old wounds could heal, new ones arrived, fresh blood flowing profusely from the wounds. Witnessing the chaotic scene, Bota and Kana could only stand and watch them in silence. Boda's eyes widened, completely shocked by the chairman's words that they're alive. The chairman struggled to utter a few words. He seized the opportunity, leaking the information. The people taken by Xenot are still alive. Everyone froze in unison, looking at each other in bewilderment. What? Bota quickly pushed through the crowd, creating a path, and rushed forward forcefully. Wait. He roughly grabbed the old man by the collar, pulling him up, and questioned him loudly. What do you mean they're still alive? The chairman swallowed dryly, speaking slowly. Xenot doesn't eat its prey immediately. He pointed to a place. It was the ideal location that the Xenot used to imprison people, a hidden shelter completely underwater below. There is only a small rock ledge protruding in the middle of the room to place the prey, and it takes them to the center of its food storage first. The newly caught prey would be dropped onto that rock ledge, left to fend for themselves. His body trembled violently, his voice also growing quieter. If they're lucky, they can live for a week. A huge explosion seemed to go off in everyone's hearts after hearing the information from the chairman. A ray of hope flickered in Boda's heart. Everyone. Lita's pretty, lovely face appeared again, her radiant smile onto the sunset, so gentle and incredibly cute. And Lita. That small hope seemed to give Bota more strength, reigniting the flame of life in a heart that had suffered so much pain and loss. She might still be alive. He thought tensely about his little sister Lita. Kana also found it hard to believe. She told herself, Lita is alive. The other residents also couldn't contain their emotions. You mean my son might still be alive? But I saw Xenot swallow him whole. However, some people didn't believe the chairman. Don't believe him. He's just trying to save his own skin. Kana stepped in front of the old man. How do you know about that place? The chairman, his face bruised, explained, because I was the first and only one to escape from Xenot's nest. Everyone was stunned to hear this. The chairman recounted. I used to be a refugee from Hong Kong. The old man's eyes stared at the words carved on the house. He remembered the hard days, having to go through storms and tempests. That IT was a major accident for the chairman. The storm made us lose our way. Later, thanks to that storm, he found this place that we stopped and built a village here. But life is not a dream. Until one day, we were attacked by Xenot. He recounted the process after that. When we woke up, we were in the monster's lair. He tried to save his comrades. Are you okay? Get up. But suddenly, a giant wave of water crashed from behind. Just as the vigilant guild master turned around, a tentacle shot out powerfully from under the water. It slammed down on the ground right next to the guild master. That slimy tentacle grabbed his comrade, and then with lightning speed, dragged that person into the water. The guild master recounted in agony. It doesn't just eat people. Bota and Kana were stunned, their mouths agape as they heard the story. He revealed a world-shattering truth. Xenot's eggs need a host to incubate them. That's the truth about the missing people. It has a breeding ground somewhere that coincides with its hiding place. When people are dragged down into the deep sea abyss, they are locked in an incubator, becoming hosts. At that moment, the guild master cleverly took the opportunity while it was busy collecting others to escape. He said in a low, hoarse voice, I was the only one who got out of there. Everyone was in disbelief, their mouths agape as they listened to the guild master's story. Kana was stunned for a moment, still alive, down there. Bota's eyes also widened, deeply shaken. Lita. He quickly grabbed the old man's collar. Where is it? The old man sneered, full of menace. I'll tell you if you agree to let me go. Bota, enraged, gave him a punch. That's right. Kana also spoke up, stopping him. You have no right to speak. Her eyes were cold, full of threat. You will come with us. These words made the guild master scared out of his wits. Near the coastal scrapyard, a diving suit was being assembled. The townspeople hurriedly transported supplies, preparing for the hostage rescue plan. They took account 12 volunteers. Quickly informed Kana, we've brought all the useful weapons as you instructed. The young man was still a little worried. Is this enough? The others gathered around her. Kana, it'll be fine. They had prepared a heavy-duty weapon for Kana. This is a naval mine made from gas combined with 90% oxygen. The engineers who made it were very confident, showing off their work. All the most powerful technologies have been integrated. Let that Xenot have a taste. I will try. Another townsperson found Bota. They gave him an equally impressive weapon. These are poison harpoons crafted from sea snake venom for sharp arrows containing deadly venom. This is just enough to take down the Xenot. I hope it will be useful in fighting Xenot. Bota took it resolutely. Thank you. The townspeople enthusiastically supplied weapons to both of them. We brought some fish and medicine. Take this dagger. I just sharpened it this morning. In the middle of the crowd, a thin hand gently touched Bota's shoulder. He turned around, startled. It was a woman, her eyes filled with tears, trembling as she pleaded, please, save my husband, Bota." He was sad, not daring to make a firm promise. "I will do my best." Other townspeople also pleaded one by one, "Please, bring the boy back. We believe in you all." They both blamed themselves and prayed, "Sorry I can't be of any help. Please take care." Bota, carrying everyone's hopes, "Turn around. Let's go." The diver robot slowly sank into the deep sea abyss. Kana and Sonia were silent, while Bota's brows were tightly furrowed, his eyes full of determination. Trying to suppress their emotions and observe their surroundings, they were ready for a life-or-death battle. The guild master glanced at each person, from the fisherman to the diver, as if he was checking their preparations, and then the mechanics. He offered a sarcastic piece of advice. "You want to take down the Xenot with this group? That's suicide." Gong looked at him coldly. "Our plan isn't to try to survive and return. We have to kill it." His eyes burned with hatred. "I will have my revenge. I'll make sure that monster is destroyed at all costs." The guild master wanted to extinguish their hope. "You'll die instantly, you fool." Bota cut in contemptuously. "Not everyone in this world is a coward like you." What? He glared, looking at the old man with indignation. "Don't you dare underestimate other people's courage. What do you know?" The guild master immediately deflated, timid and frightened. "Calm down, Bota." Sonia, standing to one side, thought differently. He's not wrong. Entering its lair with these rookies is no different from suicide. She seemed more level-headed, and it's not an ordinary sea monster. It's one of the 7 sea monsters. It's not something that can be easily defeated. In her mind, she was constantly calculating a plan. "The only ones here who can fight are me, Bota, and Kana. The other 9 will clearly get in our way." Thinking this, she turned to look at the person next to her, Kana. Sonia noticed the tattoo on Kana's shoulder. This girl is a 3-star harpooner. Sonia was both worried and confused. How on earth is her plan to confront the monster with this team? Can we trust this woman? Suddenly Sonia turned to talk to Bota. "Hang in there, Bota. Just stay calm." She patted his head to comfort him. Bota also gradually regained his composure. "It's okay." Kana looked at this scene with obvious jealousy. "Hey you, what do you think you're doing? Get your hands off him now." Just then, someone announced, "We're very close. Everyone, get ready to dive." Sonia was the first to stand up, intentionally bumping Kana's shoulder as if to provoke her. Then the whole group put on their diving gear. Bota's eyes were filled with steely determination. "Lita, everyone, please stay alive. Please be safe." Below, the deep-sea abyss was desolate. The ruined structures were submerged under a thick layer of moss and algae. Schools of fish swam among the steel frames, and from the deep, dark pipes, strange, rumbling noises echoed. On the surface of the water, air bubbles slowly rose. Then the shadow of a giant creature gradually appeared. The thing that emerged was the sea monster that had fled before. It groaned with inarticulate cries of pain. The crisscrossing wounds on its body were probably the cause. Strange sounds came from the sea monster's mouth. Suddenly, it violently vomited out countless people it had swallowed. It must have been 100 people that it swallowed and then spat out. They lay scattered on the ground, their life status unknown. Everyone was covered in wounds, large and small, one person lying on top of another, piled up in heaps. They were covered in blood and the monster's sticky saliva. Some were still breathing faintly. Some had already passed away, and among them was the little Lita, unconscious. The little girl frowned slightly, her face full of pain. Elsewhere, Bota's group had descended deep into the abyss. The guild master led the way. "We're here." He pointed. "This is the entrance to Xenot's lair." It was a giant, bottomless pit. The group looked down from above, only hearing a ringing in their ears. Bota was also amazed. So deep, it's like it's bottomless. They split up to act. Archers in position? Roger that. The whole group was ready, cables ready. Kana led the way, giving a decisive command. "Let's go." A torch was lit and thrown down for better observation. One person from the team was lowered down first to scout the situation. As soon as he reached the bottom, the monsters immediately became agitated. They rushed in, grabbing the prey tightly and viciously biting its lower part. Suddenly, the diving suit swelled up abnormally and then exploded, creating a powerful shockwave that blew away the nearby sea monsters. It turned out there was no one inside the diving suit, just a web of poison needles, along with a gas bomb that was dropped to clear out some of the sea monsters and also to weaken Gannett somewhat. Seeing this, Gannett furiously rushed upwards. A trap made of sharp fishing lines had been set by the team to welcome it, but it seemed this trap was only enough to cause Gannett pain and slow it down a bit. They were too numerous and bulky, so when they surfaced, the fishing lines couldn't hold and snapped. At this time, the guild master and Kana were holding a flaming torch to lure the sea monsters closer. The two of them were the bait to lure the bloodthirsty sea monster pack. A giant net was thrown out at the right moment, completely enveloping the sea monster. Its mouth was completely sealed. Bota and his comrades then charged forward together, holding guns and firing arrows continuously at Gannett. Each arrow lodged firmly in Gannett's body, causing it to writhe in agony, but unable to do anything but struggle continuously. After a frantic barrage of shots, Gannett was now motionless, no longer moving. It seemed they had successfully trapped the monster. The plan unfolded. Everyone understood. Only the guild master was as bewildered as a deer in headlights, so he was a little dissatisfied. Sonia looked at Kana with an admiring gaze, completely outclassed them, wiping out that horde of monsters without losing a single person. That's what experience gets you. Truly worthy of being the 3-star harpooner, Kana. After dealing with the monsters, the team decided to go down to rescue the people who were trapped. Lita and the others had also regained consciousness by now. It seemed everyone was still dazed, not understanding what had happened to them before they all passed out. They only vaguely remembered being swallowed by the monster, and now that they were awake, they thought they were on a trip to paradise. Seeing that Lita and everyone else were safe and sound, some of the team members couldn't hold back their tears, sniffling with emotion. After regaining their composure, they were about to find a way out of there, when suddenly something made Lita feel uneasy, afraid. Suddenly from behind, a giant tentacle, looking no less terrifying than Gannett, rose from the water and attacked everyone. The giant purple monster opened its hideous mouth wide, drool dripping slimily from its body. Lita turned her head to look, her expression full of vigilance and worry. The monster opened its wide mouth, a bottomless abyss, and charged straight towards the group of people. Its mouth full of sharp teeth and drool was only an inch away from Lita. She trembled, her eyes wide open, not daring to move. The people next to her ran, while looking back, their faces pale. Whoa, what is that? The monster seemed to hear the human voice. It opened its mouth even wider, and then suddenly turned its head to one side. Lita was frozen with fear, letting the monster rush past her at an incredible speed. The monster charged at a terrifying speed and snatched a woman, the very one who had been screaming her head off just now, terrifying everyone to the core. The woman was bitten by the monster, dangling in midair, her face filled with pain and despair. Her son watched his mother like this and screamed in fear. Lita once again witnessed the monster about to use its extreme speed to carry the woman away. She hadn't even had time to react. By the time she processed the situation, Lita hurriedly reached out her hand towards the woman, wanting to pull her back. Their hands were only a tiny distance from touching. But the monster's speed was too fast. The woman was snatched by it, dragged down into the deep sea. The group could only stand and watch helplessly. The child cried out in pain, "Mom." Immediately after, the monster had pulled the woman underwater. Now, only white foam splashed on the water's surface, the aftershock from the monster's attack. Lita was still in shock. She stood frozen, her hands still in a reaching posture, her whole body trembling violently. Everyone then realized something terrifying. Someone shouted, "Something, turn back. There's something in the water." All of them turned, about to scatter and run. But a huge noise from behind made them freeze. Turning their heads to look, everyone's expression turned to paralytic horror. 3 giant monsters burst up from the water. They opened their hideous mouths wide, aimed straight at the group of people. The massive bodies of the monsters carried streams of water that flowed down continuously, making their appearance even more terrifying. Everyone now screamed in terror. Whoa. The monsters didn't hesitate either, charging at lightning speed. 2 monsters rushed forward, grabbing 2 people and lifting them into the air, despite their struggles. At this point, the crowd descended into extreme chaos. Some screaming woe, some trying to find a way to escape. The child who had just lost his mother sat on the ground, sobbing his heart out. He sat crying his eyes out, snot and tears everywhere, his mouth endlessly calling for his mother in despair, completely oblivious to the monster charging towards him. Suddenly, Lita rushed forward, hugged the boy tightly, and quickly backed away, avoiding the chaotic crowd, trying to survive. The boy was dazed, his tear-filled eyes wide open, his mouth covered tightly by Lita's hand. The crowd became more and more chaotic. People were screaming and running. Whoa, someone save me. Only Lita held the boy tightly, huddled in a corner, trying her best not to make a sound. Lita was also terrified and panicked to the extreme, her eyes wide with fear, her eyebrows tightly furrowed. Sweat poured down her forehead. She had to bite her hand hard to stop herself from screaming. The monsters were still rampaging everywhere, hunting for prey. Only Lita and the boy were still trying their best to stay silent amidst the tragic cries of those who were caught. Whoa, no. Lita squeezed her eyes shut, gritting her teeth to cover the boy's mouth, while the boy, too scared, stared wide-eyed, sweating profusely but not daring to make sound. After a while, Lita felt that everything around her had become quiet again. She tiredly opened her eyes, which had been shut tight until now, and thought, "Is it over?" She lifted her head, looking around at the others in a daze. Strangely, they also had expressions of astonishment, looking in a certain direction. Lita also looked curiously, her face suddenly darkened by a giant shadow that was enveloping them. The two siblings' eyes widened in fear. In front of them now was a monster even more terrifying and hideous than the previous ones. It didn't just have one wide mouth like the others. This monster also had large, bloodshot red eyes, two mouths, one horizontal and one vertical, full of sharp teeth, and its face was strangely ugly and incredibly fierce. Its entire body slowly rose from the water, looking even more terrifying. What they saw before was just its long head. Below it was another giant mouth, and its body was covered in slimy tentacles. The unlucky people who were caught earlier were being held in strange jars attached to the monster's own body. They were trapped inside, their flesh and blood gradually being drained as nutrients for this giant monster. The people in those jars had gradually become pale, weak, and lifeless. The group looked up in utter horror. What the hell is this? Xena, Lita, and the boy stood frozen. She thought to herself, no, it's so different. At that moment, the tentacles on the monster's body began to extend, continuing to catch more people. The person who was caught earlier had been stuffed into a hole in the monster's body. He struggled in pain, but a slimy fluid was secreted from the hole, enveloping his entire body, making all resistance futile. Immediately after, that slimy fluid swelled up, completely enveloping him. The man struggled frantically, but to no avail. The monster faced Lita. It stared down with wide eyes. She looked at it, then affirmed with certainty in her heart, not Xenot. Then, the giant body suddenly began to retreat, slowly sinking beneath the water. The survivors on the shore were still in shock after the earth-shattering event. Lita seemed to have been scared out of her wits. She stared wide-eyed, thinking to herself those two. At this moment, in a flooded tunnel, the group of explorers were using a knife to carve an X on the wall to check in. Bota turned to the people next to him, saying, "It feels like we're going in circles." The group continued to grope their way forward, shining their flashlights, wading step by step through the water. The further they went, the longer and deeper the path ahead seemed. A man frowned, his expression a little impatient, like a maze. Mao turned to the guild master, asking, "Hey, old man, are you sure this is the right way?" The guild master's face was now a colorful mess of purple bruises. He seemed very bitter. "If you don't believe me, go find it yourself." Mao gritted his teeth, his voice full of threat. "An arrow will go through your temple if we find out you're lying." One of the guild master's eyes was swollen shut from the bruising. He cursed under his breath. Damn it. As they were walking, the group suddenly stopped. Bota shone his flashlight on the X on the wall. It was the mark they had made earlier. He exclaimed in surprise, "We're just here, and look." Mao also stared wide-eyed, in disbelief. Bota whipped around, glaring at the guild master, raising his flashlight as if to hit him. "Are you lying again?" The old man yelped and quickly backed away, dodging as if his life depended on it. The mechanic behind him grabbed him. "What are you plotting now?" The guild master's face contorted in pain. He shouted, "It wasn't me." Sweat poured down his face like rain. He quickly explained, "It's not my fault. How am I supposed to remember something from a decade ago? Remembering things like that is really hard. When we get out of here, I'll definitely find it." This flimsy excuse of his only made the group angrier. "You bastard. You think I believe you?" Only the two girls behind them remained somewhat calm. Sonya turned to Kana, asking, "What should we do now, Kana?" Suddenly, something caught the fisherman's attention, making him look back. The fisherman shone his light towards the source of the sound. He only saw something slowly rising from under the water, looking like some kind of strange fish. He was startled, sweat breaking out on his face. "What is that?" Kana also turned to look, her eyes full of suspicion. The thing under the water suddenly shot up with incredible speed, making the fisherman scream in terror. "Here it comes." The thing that had just emerged from the water was a monster shaped like a white shark, with two blood-red eyes and a wide mouth full of sharp teeth. It was quite large, opening its mouth and charging straight towards everyone. Boom! The monster charged at breakneck speed, its tentacles flailing wildly, causing the whole group to stumble in surprise. It opened its toothy mouth wide, biting the leg of the guild master who was standing closest, making him scream in pain, "Arg, arg." His face contorted in pain. He shouted, it hurts so much." The two people standing next to him immediately pulled out their guns and fired. One of the monster's tentacles shot out, whipping violently towards Mao, who was standing nearby. The long, strong tentacle slammed into him, sending him flying, his back hitting the wall. The 2 oxygen tanks on his back scraped against the wall, creating sparks. Another of the monster's tentacles whipped hard at the mechanic, sending him flying as well. He shouted in anger, "Ugh." Bota, standing beside them, saw his comrades in danger and immediately brandished his weapon and charged. Shouting loudly, "Kana." Kana understood immediately, rushing forward while drawing the weapon slung on her back. The 2 of them charged a perfect pincer attack, decapitating the sea monster, blood splattering everywhere. Bota and Kana looked at the dead sea monster, their expressions still serious and cold. The sea monster's head fell into the water with a loud splash, sending water everywhere. The mouth full of sharp teeth that was biting the guild master's leg also released its grip. He yelped in terror and quickly scrambled backwards. Mao stared, still in shock. What was that? The mechanic rushed to help the guild master who was sitting on the ground in the water. The old man cried out in pain, "My leg, I can't walk." The mechanic helped him up while yelling, "Stop acting like Neymar. Nothing's broken." Then suddenly, a noise startled them both, and they quickly looked towards the sound. As soon as they looked, the guild master was terrified to the core, shouting, "Whoa." In the direction they were looking, they saw another sea monster, with 4 shark heads and countless long tentacles, opening its mouth full of sharp teeth, aggressively charging towards the group. They cried out in fear. There are more and more of them. The monsters' heads all opened their mouths wide, their blood-red eyes looking incredibly ferocious, with an aura that seemed to want to eat them all alive. 2 men continuously fired at the monster. There are so many of them. Yikes. The guild master, terrified, quickly dodged. One of the monster's heads lunged towards the guild master again, making him scream in despair. Whoa. Just then, Bota rushed forward with his sword, the sharp blade with an unstoppable force, slicing off the monster's head, blood splattering once again. On the other side, Kana and Sonya were also fighting fiercely with the other sea monster heads. Seeing the 2 of them charge, Mao quickly turned to the mechanic who was about to raise his gun behind them. "Don't, you'll hit Kana." He was startled, shouting, "Ah." The 3 of them, Kana, Bota, and Sonya, charged forward simultaneously, their faces serious, determined to send the monster before them to its grave. They split up to deal with each head, continuously delivering razor-sharp slashes to the monster's tentacles and heads. Their faces were all splattered with fresh blood. They gritted their teeth, trying to strike as hard as possible. The 3 of them continuously fought the monster without a moment's rest. The surroundings had now turned into a chaotic battlefield. Blood and fragments of the monster's body floated on the water. Sonya, while slashing at the monster, turned to the other 2, her voice a little rushed. There are too many of them. On the other side, Kana and Bota were dealing with 3 shark heads at the same time, seeming a bit overwhelmed. Sonya saw this. Her eyes widened, about to rush over to help. Suddenly, tentacles shot out from nowhere, wrapping tightly around Sonya's neck, legs, and stomach, making her scream in pain. "Look out." Bota saw this and shouted in terror, "Sonya." Suddenly Sonya felt the tentacles squeezing her loose in their grip. A giant iron gate appeared out of nowhere, slicing off the sea monster's tentacles, freeing Sonya. She lost her balance and fell into the water. Mao and Kana looked at the scene before them in astonishment, dazed and flabbergasted. The large iron door had just sliced the monster, and, at the same time, trapped it inside. The trapped sea monster struggled relentlessly, slamming against the door, creating loud, echoing rumbles. Sonya sat in the water, still in shock, breathless. Ha. She was terrified, staring wide-eyed at the iron door in front of her. "What is that?" Mao was sweating profusely, his face contorted. He asked, "Did the door open by itself?" Bota and the bruised old man behind him were also completely shocked. Kana turned to the mechanic. "Did someone do something?" He immediately shook his head vigorously. "No." At that moment, behind them, a figure quietly approached, making very small noises. They all turned around, startled. Behind them were 2 small figures slowly approaching. It was Noah, his face cold, and Lynn stood beside him, the watch on her wrist emitting a strange red light, her expression a little worried. Seeing the 2 children, Sonya blurted out in a daze, "2 kids."